Welcome to the start of a brand new day here on the AM show on Joy News, your home of independent, fearless and credible journalism. My name is Sweetie Abochi and I do this with Benjamin Akakpo. I like to say this is the show where we bring you news that matters and conversations that resonate. And in the spirit of that, today we have scores of conversations that resonate, so you want to stay with that. But first, I'll serve you news that matters, and then right after that, Benjamin Akakpo will have conversations around how these news stories affect you. He'll be joined by financial analyst Dr. Wisdom Kofi Dogbe. You'll be joining Benjamin Akakpo for the news review. And then Muftar Nabila Abdullahi will present a segment on the AM Sports. And then we get into the big stories. Today, we are looking at Accra's deteriorating air quality. We know that Accra has the world's worst air quality, outspacing cities notorious for pollution like Delhi and Beijing. Data gathered by IQ Air indicates a staggering air quality index of 238, catapulting Accra to the top spot. Now, Accra's AQI of 238 falls into very unhealthy range or hazardous range, signifying severe health impact for the general population. Now, what does this mean to our health? Join us as we explore this later on in the show on the AM show. Also coming up, we have a conversation around the 15% VAT. Now, has Cabinet actually scrapped the 15% VAT for above lifeline consumers of electricity? Why did President Akufo-Addo sack some MDCEs over the weekend? We'll seek answers from Palgrave Boache Dankwa. He's government spokesperson on governance and security. Also, how do you learn without the assistance of a teacher? That's the story of pupils at the Chihungu Primary School in the Northeast Gonja district of the Northern Region. They want government to remedy the situation. We'll discuss all this and more within the next 4 hours, and then you get to have your say. Welcome to the AM show. Let's settle now for the news. This is the AM News on the AM show. Now let's get into the details. Let's begin with the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament, who's recommending a special audit of the National Sports Authority following major infractions cited in the Auditor General's reports. The report captures missing vehicles, payment of money into wrong accounts, as well as writing of debts without authority. Officials of the NSA had a tough time explaining some of the infractions as they faced grueling questions from some members of parliament. Here is Dr. James Kluchi-Aveji directing the police to arrest Northern Regional Director of the NSA, as well as the accountant for allegedly squandering more than 160,000 Ghana cedis belonging to the authority.
That office is rotten. I mean, the authority is rotten. Minister, we are directing that the regional director and the accountant at the region should be picked by the police.
Thank you so much.
They should be picked immediately by the police.
Okay. Chairman, thank you. We'll take action.
You are invited to appear before Parliament, a committee of Parliament. You refuse to attend, knowing very well that you have squandered over 160,000 Ghana cedis. And you think that will leave you scot-free? Minister, can you do that, and then let's get the feedback.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, action will be taken, and I'll communicate same to you.
Thank you very much.
Still in Parliament, there were other happenings at the Public Accounts Committee, including government indebtedness to several community water schemes following the free water program rolled out in 2020.
After more than a month on break, Parliament is set to resume, and the Public Accounts Committee has already been sitting for a week now. And today, a number of really key issues came up. You will recall that in the lead up to the 2020 election, you enjoyed some free water. it appears government has not finished fully paying the community water schemes and the Ghana Water Company Limited. And today there's been a directive for government to immediately clear off that debt.
I want to beg you and beg your people to help us to solve a small problem we are encountering at Oibi area water.
What is that problem?
Well, one of the schemes that were asked to give free water during COVID.
Okay.
And 3 billion plus.
That's 300,000 plus.
300 plus as I speak has not been paid. And we are struggling, so we need our money. We are struggling, so we need our money. Sorry, please.
You need your money?
Yes,
Honorable Minister,
together.
I'm sure Oibi area water is not the only water that is suffering. It came up in last year's report. And I'm sure this year too, the same thing will happen. And your former boss was here to respond that you have written to the Minister of Finance for release of fund. Has the Minister of Finance released the fund now to be paid to these area water boards, the community water schemes?
Perhaps one big theme today at the Public Accounts Committee has been the issue of unearned salaries.
So the unearned salary infractions this year is simply nauseating. Because they colluded. Last week we found evidence of collusion. They collude, they validate, they take the money, they pass back, they go and collect and share. So somebody should be held accountable.
So far, it's this unearned salary is becoming a lot. I think that there must be a grand scheme that is going on in the public service. So the head of civil service must be made to get none of this issue, and then we'll find a way to curb it. Well, you have to continue to pursue the money from you don't have there is not a guarantor here. The families too are not cooperating. Once you report the issue to the IOCO, let's see what IOCO will do.
The Public Accounts Committee is not happy with recurring infractions in the Auditor General's report on earned salaries, minor procurement breaches. These are things that the Public Accounts Committee have been at pains to stress must end, and are expecting that in the coming days, when more MDAs appear before the committee to actually review their conduct, as have been reported in the Auditor General's report, these issues will be a thing of the past. Reporting for Joy News, Kweku Asante, Parliament House, Accra.
Now, President of Doro Traditional Council, Na Alhaji Seidu Tugbani Salimbile II, has admonished his subjects to be circumspect in their utterances during the electioneering in order not to fall foul of the law. He says those who want to do partisan politics are free to reassign and abdicate their skins. Na Alhaji Seidu Tugbani made the statement at the first general meeting of the Doro Traditional Council at Doro. Rafiq Salam reports.
This was the first general meeting of the Doro Traditional Council since Na Alhaji Seidu Tugbani Salimbile Nangmuni Bimbo Kombangwore II took over as the paramount chief of the Doro Traditional area following the death of Na Songmania Danagoro II. The meeting was attended by all sub and divisional chiefs, opinion leaders from the Doro Traditional area. Na Alhaji Seidu Tugbani Salimbile Nangmuni Bimbo Kombangwore II used the opportunity to lay bare his developmental plans for the traditional area. His priority hasn't changed much from that of his predecessor and pledged to continue with the unfinished business aimed at bettering the lives of the people.
My vision for the Doro traditional area is for us to have a developed Doro in all aspects of our life, including but not limited to education, health, agriculture, and a worthy infrastructure. Through committed and dedicated chiefs, individuals, and professionals agreeing to collaborate and work in peace, harmony, and unity for the attainment of our set goals within the context of an enabling environment created by the government of the day. The biblical catchword in this case is peace. Without peace, there can be no development. I wish to tackle head-on the myriad of developmental challenges facing my traditional area by engaging governments of the day. I wish to pick it up from the dream of my predecessor during his historic visit in March 2018 to the Jubilee House with a delegation to see His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Ghana, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, in order to have the Wa Jambose Road tarred, the Dulmo SHS completed and operationalized, the Jambose Water Project connected to all communities along the road, including Dulmo Township, and finally the creation of a new district which will be coterminous with a constituency in the Dulmo traditional area.
Another challenge he identified was the Dulmo Nahas Palace, which is in deplorable state, calling on the West District Assembly and the government to rehabilitate it.
I wish the Honorable DC were here. It needs rehabilitation, and you know it's the responsibility of the District Assembly and government. The palace also needs a befitting traditional council hall and not just a pavilion. There is the need to also get a wall around the palace to prevent people from encroaching the palace land. As a former DC, I ensured that this hall was constructed for the Durmona without knowing that one day I will become Durmona. A similar one was also constructed for the Wichauna. We shall be conducting the Honorable DC anytime she visits into the palace to see at first hand these challenges we are talking about.
Na Alaji Seri Tungmana Salemble Nangun Bimbo Kumban the second, who is a former district chief executive of the West, admonished the subjects to be apolitical and circumspect on their utterances in order not to fall foul of the law.
I entreat all chiefs to be circumspect in their utterances in order not to get themselves trapped by the long arm of the law. You are all aware that you do not have to engage in active partisan politics, or you resign if you wish to. All chiefs, therefore, must accommodate all political parties, religions, and do right to all manner of people without fear of favor or ill will.
The Dulmo Paramount Chief used the opportunity to call on all in the traditional area to bury their differences for the development of the area.
I stretch my arm of reconciliation to all those who disagreed with us from the beginning and wish to say that they should come forward for us to make peace and develop the traditional area. Disagreeing by taking entrenched positions have never solved any problem. We are all brothers and sisters in Dulmo, and we shall be more than willing to welcome and accept them back.
Reporting for Joy News, Rafik Salam, Dulmo.
In other stories, the Danish ambassador to Ghana, Tom Noring, is urging Ghanaians to reduce the number of fossil fuel-powered vehicles in the country to mitigate the impact of climate change. According to him, the recent change in weather is due to the increase in the usage of such vehicles, which emit more greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, impacting the ozone layer negatively.
And when we look at transportation, 9 out of 10 Danes own and ride regularly, most even every day, a bicycle. No CO2 emissions from bicycles. Let me just point that out. But let me turn back to Ghana. Ghana is among the most vulnerable nations to climate change and has taken the lead by internationally speaking on behalf of the most vulnerable nations. Congratulations with that. That is very important that the most vulnerable nations have a strong voice in the international debate. With this sector cooperation, Denmark will support Ghana to adapt to climate change and thereby spearhead climate actions for the green transition.
Now, the much-anticipated final Spelling Bee Champion contest came off at the Christ the King Catholic Church in Accra on Saturday. After intensive weeks of spelling battle among over 300 students from various schools across the country, the competition came to its final stage with 3 adept spellers, Abena Giovanni and Nandom Dako Asari. Now, in a fun yet competitive contest, Giovanni from Christ the King School spelled his championship word, claiming the Spelling Bee 2024 title. There's more in the following report.
The Ghana Spelling Bee Champion 2024, which was held on Saturday, 3rd February at Christ the King Catholic Church in Accra, had a unique inclusion to the program. The competition had 99 students vying for the ultimate trophy. The students of the Tete Oklu School for the Deaf represented and had a resilient attitude, having 5 students make it to the knockout stage. Joy Prime's Fidelis Entry Eje had a conversation with the facilitator and a volunteer who understands sign language as well as the MP for Ketu South. The finals had a unique inclusion to the Spelling Bee competition, where the hearing impaired students displayed an amazing competitive spirit. Mavis Trinibua, who is a volunteer, had this to say.
The Spelling Bee is a predominantly auditory competition, and since there were deaf spellers, they needed to have a form of communication to get them to know the words they are spelling beforehand. So I'm quite equipped with the Ghanaian Sign Language, so I had to sign the words that the judges needed them to spell, had to sign them to them, and then they finger spelled it, and then I say out the letters they are spelling. So that's how I went about it.
Preparation towards this competition was not an easy task for the facilitators, but by dint of hard work and determination, they made progress despite the challenges. Madame Honesty shared their process and optimism.
Since almost all languages have their unique alphabets, sign language also have alphabets, and Ghana, we make use of the English language as a means of communication through sign language. So in getting them to sign or spell the words as it has to do with spelling, we, the facilitators, take our time to help them learn. Number one, from time to time, we meet and then we bring out any word that we think is a possible word that can be called for sign as spelling. So we look for different words, and then we train the learners. How do we train them? We write the words, then we sign the words. We will sign and they will also sign. Then we will spell. When we are done with many words, we organize something like contests at the training. So that contest, the word will not be on the board for you to see. Then we call you, you come forward, then you spell the words for us. If you spell it correct, we encourage you. If you don't spell it correct too, we still encourage you to do better next time. Our own case is not like that. Once we have never seen that word in any book before or been taught in the classroom, there is no way we can get it. So even with that, we are hoping that they will be able to spell. That's our hope and prayer.
The MP for Ketu South, Ablaji Fagomashi, outlines the inclusion of the hearing impaired and the importance of Spelling Bee for children.
I've seen the efforts that the originator and the organizers have put in to improve every year to this stage where we have other people that ordinarily we would not be expecting as a part of it. It's such a plus. It's such a plus. And it gladdens my heart that they've reached the stage where they can bring children from the School for the Deaf and the Blind and children with special abilities being able to participate really gladdens my heart.
As the competition came to its final stage, Abna, Giovanni and Nadom battled it out, with Giovanni emerging as the ultimate winner after accurately spelling the word Guho. Nadom and Abna emerged first and second runner-ups respectively. These three have the opportunity to represent Ghana at the Scripps Spelling Bee in the USA, and that makes them the only African contenders in the competition.
And that's how we wrap up for AM News right here on the AM Show. Now the conversations begin. We have AM News Review coming up next with Benjamin Akakwan. He's joined by financial analyst Dr. Wisdom Kofi Dogbe for the News Review. Keep watching. There's more from now till about 10 a.m.
Welcome back on the AM show. You know how we do it, and we started you off on a wonderful note. Sweetie Abochi taking charge. Now that we've served you the news, right now we'll be serving you the news review, and you know it's always brought to you courtesy of Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. If you find us talking a lot about the prostate, among other issues, it's because of how potent a threat they can be. Vital organs in your body, yet they can do some things to you. You know that King Charles is himself grappling with some of those issues, though the UK is being both transparent and opaque, so you can say translucent with some of the information. But let me introduce you, if you've never heard of them, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. And what they're offering you, two things for free, gratis. Prostate screening, fertility screening. The first, or the former, if you're a man, the latter, if you're a woman. And you can reach out to them at any of their branches. Here in Accra, they are located at Spintex, opposite the Shell signboard. There's Kumasi, Kronoma here behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrade Anaji State, that's where they can be found. Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa, and Esiama in Zama. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. And the start of the news review, we're joined by finance analyst from far, far away, though he's Ghanaian, Dr. Wisdom Dogbe joins the conversation. Good morning.
Good morning, Ben. Thanks for having me again.
Thanks for being with us. Thanks for having breakfast with us. Yes, still a lot has happened since the last time we had an interaction just about a week ago. Are there any pertinent matters you've followed that you'd like to share your thoughts on? So let me lay a foundation for you. You do know that organized labor is posing a threat of a demonstration on February the 13th. The umbrella body, the TUC, and many of the components saying they will not work. They will demonstrate on February the 13th. Why? Two things. One has to do with the 15% tax or VAT to be imposed on VAT. Now, some suggest that Cabinet has met and decided not to go along with it. Nana B of the MPP spoke vehemently against it, which was a bit of a surprise. But we've not got any formal information to that effect. And some of these groupings are saying once they don't get that, they will still go ahead and demonstrate. There's also, apart from them, yes, traders, exporters, importers, and the talk of an eco-levy or emissions levy, where depending on what vehicle you're using, right down from motorbikes to the highest vehicles in terms of their CC, you'd be paying anything from 75 cedis to upwards of 300 cedis. It's left many scratching their heads, worried, but government also says we're trying to meet IMF regulations or stipulations. It's one of the matters you could talk on, but I'll give you 2 minutes to share your thoughts and then we get into the papers.
Thank you once again, Ben. If indeed the government has dropped the 15% ECG VAT, there should be an official communication to that effect. You know, the last time I came through here, I called all these taxes designer taxes that place undue stress on the citizens and the businesses of this nation. I have continued to follow this a bit more about the impact of these exorbitant taxes in the nation. I have heard how companies in Ghana are beginning to reduce their workforce because of the excessive taxes on them. And another trend that is beginning to emerge, which equally troubles me, is how these taxes are forcing multinational companies to relocate all or portions of their operations offshore, manufacturing there,
and on that point, on that point, if I may, I don't know whether you've read PricewaterhouseCoopers, their report that actually corroborates what you're saying, that a lot of entities have gone abroad. So even the toothpaste and the likely things that some of these entities, I don't want to mention names, would have made, the canned beverages, they outsource them, produce there, like a place like Nigeria, and then they import into Ghana rather than produce here because of the cost of everything. Just to corroborate what you're saying.
Yeah, Ben, so how did we get here as a nation in the first place? How do we implement policies that don't seem to be in the best interest of the average Ghanaian? You know, my mind tells me that when production is shipped offshore because of the heavy tax burden on businesses, those are jobs, Ben, that are getting exported out of the country, worsening the already precarious unemployment situation in the country. This trend is guaranteed to worsen the nation's trade deficit because as more and more companies ship production offshore, our imports could exceed the value of what we export, creating more balance of trade issues for us. And also, as these companies send production overseas, we run the risk of losing some domestic industries. Because if domestic producers, that is the companies that remain here, if they cannot compete with the cheaper imported goods, they may be forced out of business. And this excessive taxation beats my mind, Ben. Did the IMF force Ghana to implement all these taxes to qualify for a bailout? The answer is a big no. Our leaders, without regards to the plight of the poor, they are the ones that they proposed to the IMF that they would achieve revenue targets through taxation. A nation that cannot prioritize the plight of the vulnerable and implement policies that provide equal opportunity, economic opportunity for the people. Isn't that concerning? We ought to be implementing policies that positively impact the livelihoods of our people, not to overburden them some more. I call the emission tax in particular a scam that is perpetrated against the people of Ghana.
You call the emissions tax a scam. Why? Why?
It should, and I'll tell you in a moment. I read comments about one of the MCs in the country justifying the emissions tax and even saying that it was passed by both NPP and NDC MPs, which gives them the authority to the government to assess this tax on the people for the development of the nation. I'll get into a bit of that later, but if it's positioned that this emissions tax would help the government collect enough money to invest in other areas of the economy, if its comments reflect the position of the government on this matter, then I'll argue that this is nothing but a bait and switch, and quite frankly, very, very deceptive. Then emissions tax is levied mainly to solve challenges with climate change or environmental protection. You know, according to the Paris Accord, which seeks to reduce emissions and manage rising temperatures of our planet, the countries that have signed on to this accord are expected to adopt these policies and regulations that will lead to reduced emissions and properly manage climate change. And so in some of these nations, emissions tax is used not to raise money for the government to construct roads and provide other amenities and all of that stuff. But these emission taxes are meant to discourage folks from buying or using high emission vehicles and produce revenue for climate change initiatives. And emissions taxes are never meant to be a standalone solution in the fight against emissions. That's why I call it a scam here. You know, these emission taxes alone should never be the sole solution to climate change solutions in the country. If the government is imposing emission taxes without corresponding policies to reduce emissions, I can almost assure you that it is an exercise in futility when it comes to reducing emissions. First, we need to understand that emissions taxes have very, very limited impact on the vehicles currently in the system. What do you expect, folks, with the gas guzzlers? In the US, we call them gas guzzlers. Do you expect them to sell them and buy electric vehicles? Look, a vehicle emissions tax should mainly be assessed on new vehicle purchases. Rationally speaking, that is the time you might be able to influence a vehicle buyer to consider the decision based on the tax that will be levied on the vehicle the person is trying to buy. All that I'm saying is this. It takes a bit of time for older, high-emission vehicles to be phased out of the system. And these vehicle owners might just continue to use them then until the high-emission vehicles reach the end of their lifespan. It means that immediate impact on reducing emissions by imposing emissions that is guaranteed to be very limited in the case of Ghana. Now, I also think this is completely unfair and repressive tax. How is it that trotro drivers or owners whose car runs on gas, right? We call it petrol in Ghana. This person pays the same emission tax as the owner of heavy-duty off-road diesel trucks. Both of these vehicles are miles apart when it comes to their emission levels. Then we also need to think about the effectiveness of this tax. Its effectiveness in reducing emissions in the nation. Look, that depends largely on the availability and affordability of cleaner alternatives, such as electric or hybrid vehicles. How many EVs do we have in Ghana? And how many of the current vehicle owners can afford to buy these EVs? So let's consider this. If this option or alternatives are not readily available or affordable to majority of vehicle owners, then this emission tax alone is most likely not going to get you to the right result of significantly reducing emissions. Unless the government is not operating in good faith and being disingenuous and using this emissions tax as a cover-up to mercilessly continue their policy of more and more taxation instead of production.
Is that what you think is happening?
That's what I think is happening.
So this is just a mere charade, another opportunity to tax the people into the ground. That's what you're saying.
That's exactly what I'm saying. It's very clear to the average Ghanaian, right? You can see through that. And then another point I'll make quickly on this, and then we can move on, is, if you think about it, it doesn't make sense from an environmental protection perspective at all. While a tax can influence consumer behavior, it may not be enough to completely change driving habits or mode of transportation. So I asked this question earlier on. Who would change their driving habit or sell their current vehicle and buy another one that does not attract emission tax? Very few, if any. Most people will drive their high emission vehicles, and this tax will not necessarily change any of that at all. Finally, my last point on this, I promise, and I'll rest my case quickly. How would this be monitored and enforced? You see, there's a lot of tax experts and environmentalists, right? Climate activists and so on in the country. If the government is serious about reducing emissions, all of these stakeholders should be assembled to advise the government on a better approach instead of the broad daylight deception with only one purpose: to force the already struggling vehicle owners to contribute to raise money for the government for purposes with little to no resemblance to environmental climate change initiatives.
Well, thank you very much. That's been a pretty exhaustive, well, not completely exhaustive, but protracted analysis of the situation. We also know that we could, for example, take advantage of carbon credits, as some countries are doing. Look, I'm thinking that if government were thinking in a certain direction, I never said they were not thinking. I'm saying if they were thinking in a certain direction, right? We could harness carbon credits. A lot of these young people, it's easy money, basically. Get more trees on, like in the Amazon, plant more trees in certain designated areas. you get paid for carbon credits because we're losing forest cover across the world. Now, the more we try to regenerate this, countries, especially in light of climate change, are compensated for that. It could be an easy way of getting resources and maybe taking, it may not be like from A to Z, but maybe convincing some of those, especially Mayad and Galamsey, to move away and engage in some of these tree planting exercises. And guess what? They get paid for it because in the end, you get payments for the carbon credits. And you can sell these carbon credits to other countries that pollute more. That's the way it works. But we're not thinking along these lines. Rather, it will always be taxation, 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 taxation. Right now, I don't know. It may get to the point where even the pen you wield, if you write a bit, you'll be taxed. God save us. Anyway.
And God indeed save us. But I'll tell you this, the government is serious about this. They need to bring folks together, right? Put folks together in a room. Let's deliberate. Have folks bring ideas.
Right.
You know, you don't just slap this on the people and expect it to stick, right? To your point, I think they need to do more consultation before they roll something like this out.
All right. Let's get going now. The Daily Graphic newspaper. Health alert, high-risk meningitis period. Reports sore throat, headache, fever, and bodily pains. God knows we've been through some of them. I mean, with the Harmattan and everything going on, we're all struggling. I've been up and down a bit. You go out, it's pretty hazy. And we've also been told that our air quality has hit the worst in the world at a point recently. And the good thing, though, is that in the course of this week, it's going to taper off. But that's not a good sign. And what are the causes? Pollutants from different sources. Many sources are mentioned, including the likes of some places where some smelting is going on. Then our vehicles and what they present. There's also, I believe, the Harmattan itself contributing about 5% of that. When you put all of it together, deadly cocktail. And you know what that does? Your lungs and other parts of your body as you inhale. The quality of air you inhale also, if you didn't know this, it impacts even your lifespan. That's why there are some people, I was reading recently about this group of people in that town, because of the height, because of the quality of air, because they are eating everything fresh and all of that, most people in that town live to over 100 years. So sometimes if people don't live that long, if life expectancy is that short, it's also because of all the pollutants. Accra is becoming a concrete jungle. And a place like cantonments, which was never meant to be, it was supposed to be a kind of sparsely developed. Now, because of politics and everything, people are buying land chock-a-block, putting up skyscrapers, sky rises, and the whole place is turning into... I remember having a conversation once with this person who said that if we're not careful, and no slur to the people of Nima, okay? I have many friends in those communities, but it may become because of, and when we mention Nima, it's because of how congested the place is without proper, outlets and all of that. But 28 Greater Accra MMDCs sign performance contracts. There's Common Core Curriculum, science students to skip core maths and integrated science. I see, that's interesting. And DVLA resolves online registration challenges, registers 25,101 vehicles. On the back page, Nigeria equal Egypt's AFCON record. What record is that? Nigeria will be playing in the semifinals of the Africa Cup of Nations for the 16th time, joining the Pharaohs of Egypt at the top of the list of countries with the most appearances in the last 4 of the competition. Of course, the last time they downed Angola by 1-0. And then Bros revels in Bafana's AFCON progress. Let's see whether they can make the next hurdle. But getting into the stories now. Sore throat, headache, fever, general bodily pains, and others are symptoms of meningitis, which has a higher risk during the dry season. The public are therefore required to report to the nearest facility if they experience any of the above symptoms. Now, this is to ensure early diagnosis of possible cases of meningitis for appropriate and early treatment. The Deputy Director in charge of surveillance at the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Dennis Odai Lai, said the current dry season in the country had increased the risk of meningitis. Now, the GHS officials said people were predisposed to contract meningitis in the dry season because some of the organisms that caused the condition already lived on their bodies or in their throats, though they might not cause illness at that point. He explained that the dry season provided a good opportunity for the bacteria to enter the bloodstream and from there to enter the brain and cause meningitis. That's what makes meningitis even more dangerous. Gets into your brain and Charlie. So please, if you all of a sudden come down with sore throat, headache, fever, bodily pains, don't assume it is the normal malaria. This one, COVID. So if you find any, just go, head straight to the hospital. Doc, let me do pages 13 and 16, and then I'll let you come in and just reflect on all of them. So all senior high schools, school science students will no longer be required to study core and elective mathematics as separate examinable subjects from the 2024-2025 academic year. Instead, they will be required to take additional mathematics. The Director General of the National Council on Curriculum and Assessment, Professor Edward Appiah, has hinted. He further revealed that such science students would also no longer study integrated science because they were already studying pure science. This arrangement is similar to what existed in the country's educational system post-independence until the major reforms which replaced the middle school system with the junior high school and the secondary school system with the SHS system. I don't know about this. I mean, we keep tinkering, tweaking with this system. I know back in the day, and we've seen it throughout the years, science students who have excelled in physics, biology, and the rest, and failed core mathematics, and done very poorly in integrated science. But who am I? I am not the generality of it. Additional mathematics and core mathematics are not the same. That's to be clear. So I don't know. DVLA resolves online registration challenges, and that story is also there. Any quick reflections before I go to page 16?
Ben, I spent some time in India in November, and I thought they had the worst air quality over there. I was in a mask in India. In India.
Oh yeah, India, Mumbai, Delhi. I mean, there are places.
I spent some time in Delhi, and I thought they had the worst air pollution. So I'm pretty surprised to hear that Accra has actually joined that category. Hopefully we can resolve that very soon. Let me take a quick stab on the meningitis issue. On the outbreak of this, I think it's quite concerning because if I recall, meningitis is caused by bacterial infection, or a part of it or a strand of it can be caused by bacterial infection that can be quite severe and potentially life-threatening.
Yeah.
So it is my hope that the public will take this warning seriously and report to the nearest facility should they experience these associated symptoms. I think, though, that eliminating or managing diseases like meningitis in Ghana, it requires a pointed and comprehensive approach that addresses the specific underlying causes and also the challenges. Right. I'm not a medical doctor here, but I hope that there will be preventive measures that the medical experts can communicate to the folks. We also have to think about what is the prevention, right? We always say that prevention is better than cure. You know, the challenge I see here is that, Ben, if citizens will have to pay for testing and treatment, rest assured that not everyone with symptoms will report to the nearest facility. Also, are there higher risk areas that we can focus prevention efforts on, such as populations at higher risk of contracting meningitis? We need to consider the implementing factors here, right? Targeted at intervention to reduce the risk of infection and also enhance the access to prevention and treatment services for the population.
Right.
In all of these, though, I think we need to strengthen our healthcare system as a nation. I saw your documentary titled Sick Hospitals, and Ben, it is heartbreaking. I don't know if all of the facilities or health facilities are well equipped to deal with an outbreak such as this one.
Let's not talk about an outbreak. I beg you. And I'm saying that with a lot of hope, because we simply don't. In recent times, we had a conversation. I remember CDD fellow we had an interaction with. Only about 10% of our medical facilities, come pharmacies, there's a statistic, have thermometers, something as basic as a thermometer, which they'll use to measure your temperature, okay? 10%. When it comes to, don't go to incubators, defibrillators, ventilators, and all of that. I mean, these are things that you find that are basic in other parts of the world, not here. So don't even start to talk about if there were an outbreak, because it wouldn't be a pleasant story. Let's not even go there.
And you see, that's concerning, right? I think we need to invest in this sector to provide adequate infrastructure, more well-trained doctors and nurses, with good service condition and reliable supply of essential medicines, like even paracetamol. There are some hospitals, they did not have that when I saw that documentary on Joy TV. Then healthcare is not my area of strong expertise, but a little I know about preventing diseases like this, it calls for collaboration among government, public, and the private healthcare providers. And society as a whole need to align, come together with efforts and shared resources to tackle this one. And then we need to continue to fund research facilities. If I remember correctly, there was a place called Noguchi, right? And other medical research institutions in the country to help develop cutting edge. Say that again?
At the University of Ghana, Noguchi.
Yeah. We need to invest in these institutions to help develop tools and treatment options. Ghana is talented with the brains, and with adequate funding, I believe that we can find solutions and better protect our people.
Right. Let's get into other stories and wrap politics, page 17. I'll not discriminate in development projects, Mamama says so. Whether an area voted for the NDC or not will ensure that they get their share of the national cake towards the transformation of the country for the benefit of the citizenry. That's the thrust of what he says. But I've also learned to take what these politicians say with a grain of salt. I know why he's saying this, because the president, for example, twice, once in Mepe, said, you people didn't even vote for me. Technically, we shouldn't be, blah, 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 but we remember that. And then the Akumfi one, adding infamy upon infamy, or infamy to infamy, that, look, you didn't vote for, is it Atukujo or something of that's, I believe, his name. He won in 2016, you didn't bring him back in 2020, and so that's why I've not. He said this openly, engaging some people from Ekumfi when it had to do with the former president, Atta Mills. So I guess, but I always say that nowadays I've become very wary of our politicians. Obana to me, yeah, fine, but for now the talk. Anyway, page 5. Namibia's new president sworn in after predecessor dies. Sad development there. As for that one, our very own Akufo-Addo could tweet on it. I saw him. I saw a post by the president. Not that it's wrong, but there are things that happen in this country, and unlike back then when he was trying to be president, how he was often on social media. Nowadays, you wouldn't hear anything, even when the youth march up to the Jubilee House. Senegal Parliament to vote on election. Tyler shines as Nigeria stars miss out on Grammy glory. South African music sensation Tyler, you know her song Water. I've actually never listened to that song fully. I just get snippets of it. Has won the inaugural Grammy Award for Best African Music Performance with a viral global hit, Water, edging out Nigeria's Burna Boy, Davido, Aya Star, and Asake. The win has elicited excitement among Tyler's fellow South Africans, but ignited controversy among many Nigerians. Following the win, some Nigerians took to social media to express their surprise that Tyler, a relatively newcomer, Daily Graphic, a relative newcomer to the African music scene, triumphed over the more seasoned Nigerian Afrobeat stars nominated alongside her. My Niger people, we are like brothers, you know what's up. Burna has won, Wizkid has won. I mean, I know you expected Davido or Burna Boy to carry it. It can't always be their day. Plus, look at the great things Tyler did with this hit on the Billboard charts and all of that. You can't take that away from her. So while I've not fully listened to the song, I may not be a fan, but Charlie, it can't always be Niger, can it? I would like to end on this point because I'll go back to this. ECOWAS and the piss-poor leadership. And if things go wrong, then we start, oh, and why has there been a military incursion? Like I keep saying, I'll say it every time. I have seen war So military incursions into democratic practice is a no for me, especially as a student of politics and international relations. But I keep saying, if you sit on your rear, your behind, and see constitutional coups happen and keep mum, then the other one will also happen. And that is my beef with our leaders in the sub-region. Hypocrisy. Barefaced hypocrisy. The story says Senegal's parliament is meeting to consider the postponement of presidential elections announced by President Macky Sall, a move that has plunged the country into crisis. Monday's session is happening after a day of violent street protests in the capital, Dakar. The signs are on the wall. The writing is on the wall. In the capital, Dakar, during which at least one senior opposition figure was arrested and growing international concern. Lawmakers are voting on a proposal, Ghana for Muntio, to postpone the presidential poll previously set for February the 25th for up to 6 months. The text before them would need the support of 3/5 of the 165-seat parliament to pass. Macky Sall, two-term president, just like Alassane Ouattara, President Akufo-Addo's friend, who has gone for a third term, unprecedented. When Gbagbo had his own, we ousted him. Look at what Ouattara is doing. No one is talking about that. Now, Macky Sall wants to go for an unprecedented third term. It's constitutionally forbidden. He's tried to tweak the constitution. It's not necessarily worked. So now he wants to handpick his predecessor. The question is why? Why would he want to handpick? If not, I've spoken to this man before, Macky Sall. I've interviewed him before. So if there's something not right, I mean, if not for that, why would you want to handpick your predecessor? If you're clean, if there's nothing wrong anywhere. And for that process and other processes, they are postponing elections again from February the 25th for another 6 months. You see, people have already started protesting. But ECOWAS will be pim. But let something happen there. Then you see them. Over to you, Doc, briefly, and then we'll get into other papers.
Ben, you touch on ECOWAS, so let me actually mention quickly that I've been trying to follow the developments involving ECOWAS. Look, Ben, it's rather unfortunate that the nations, Burkina Faso, Niger, and I know this is not a story that you just read, but I want to touch on this briefly that we can move on, that these nations have decided to leave ECOWAS. And, go ahead, Ben. Can you hear me, Ben?
I can hear you. Please go ahead, Doc. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I was saying there will most likely be impacts to regional cooperation and trade across the sub-region. And I know these three nations are consulting to determine if they should allow Ghana and other West African countries to do business, right? To continue to do business in their respective countries. If they kick out Ghanaians and other West African traders, maybe they'll bring in the Russians. Who knows? I'm just saying. But if you look at it carefully, all these three nations have something in common. There have been military takeovers, coups, to replace democratically elected governments with military governments in their countries. And the way power has changed hands in these nations is in direct contravention of the Charter of ECOWAS, which condemns all military coup and rather supports democracy where all leaders are elected through the democratic process. So my understanding is that these three nations have been suspended by ECOWAS because of these coups and because they have since now returned to civilian rule. It seems to me that this is an action of defiance than legitimate concerns about the principles of ECOWAS. So instead of finding solutions to return the nation to civilian rule, I think they decided to take the highway and abandon the West African states community entirely and take their destinies into their own hands, maybe counting on allies like Russia. Look, I am always an advocate for change and also questioning the status quo. Why would a president that has served 2 terms already, why would he want to serve a third one or handpick his successor? Just like you said. But by all means, Ben, the concerns of these three nations about ECOWAS possibly shifting from the principles of its founding fathers and the spirit of Pan-Africanism, this concern should be taken seriously and reviewed to ascertain the veracity of what these three nations are claiming. But that said, You cannot convince me that you are Pan-African if you don't want African nations or people to trade in your country. That said, I think the role of ECOWAS is indispensable to the stability of the continent, fostering regional integration and democratic processes across the West Africa sub-region. But one of the goals of ECOWAS is to promote regional economic integration among its member states. And that includes removing trade barriers, making custom procedures consistent across the region. Recently, our president, he announced that the removal of visa entry requirements for other African countries. This, although it needs to be carefully implemented, it is in line with the aims of ECOWAS, which is a key benefit that the organization fosters. Then also, ECOWAS regions, they foster that kind of a regional cooperation, right? And collaboration among its member states. It provides a platform for dialogue, negotiation, and also consensus building on various regional issues, including peace, security, agriculture, infrastructure development, and environmental sustainability. Now, through collective action, Ben, member states can address these common challenges. If you remember, there was something called ECOMOG. That is the Economic Community of West African States Monitoring Group, which was a multilateral security forces created by ECOWAS for the militaries of member states to collaborate and maintain peace and security in the region. A lot of Ghanaian soldiers were deployed on peacekeeping missions with ECOMOG to places like Liberia and so on. So the role of ECOWAS in keeping peace and security in the region is critical, in my opinion. Look, all that I'm saying is this. We need to find a better way to resolve some of these. Instead of the nations say we are leaving ECOWAS. The destiny of Africa must firmly be in the hands of Africans and decided by Africans only.
Okay. Let's quickly get through the last batch of papers and then we shall take it from there. The Ghanaian Times, danger looms. Accra Central congestion worsens. Kwame Nkrumah circles, CBD, hardest hit areas. Pedestrians, traders, vehicles compete for space. And you know what I'm talking about if you go into central Accra. How we can even have a system like this, I don't know. But this is Ghana for you. Is this where we're saying would make the cleanest city in Africa? I don't know. And I'm not necessarily targeting President Akufo-Addo and what he said. I'm targeting any administration that will come because administrations have come and gone and Accra Central and many parts of our country have remained what they are. The hypocrisy of, you know, you have some foreign dignitary or president coming, then they clear the streets and everything, paint a few things here and there. Once the person is gone, back to Batan. Whom are we deceiving? Thieves vandalize ECG transformer, steal copper windings at Nkumkrom, and interesting development here. Even our traffic lights. I met someone at church who's Ghanaian living in Canada, an elderly citizen. He said, I'm going through town. So many of the traffic lights are faulty. I told him, Senior, well, he watches me. That's why he approached. I told him, look, we've spoken about this thing not less than 10 times within how many? It is what it is. Even sometimes you have thieves go and steal those. Yes. You have rats chew some of the cabling. I mean, and it's also because of our sewage systems. It's a total mess. Lands Commission improves revenue by 12% in 2023. We did the story yesterday. Protects financial data from cyber attacks. That's according to the Vice President. The Daily Guide, NSA director hot over 160K. And then don't come to make money. Yana to Mamama. Then OSP returns Cecilia Dapa's money. I'll do the one on page 3. The Public Accounts Committee of Parliament has ordered the immediate arrest of the Northern Regional Director and Accountant of the National Sports Authority. The two are alleged to have squandered over 160,000 of an internally generated fund after they failed to pay the amount into the consolidated fund. And then the overlord of Dagbon, Yana Abubakar II, has cautioned the flag bearer of the National Democratic Congress, John Dramani Mahama, over his motive for seeking another term in office. According to the Yana, former President Mahama's quest for the presidency should not be about making more money for his family, but to leave a legacy. And the final story I'll look at, even as we talk about sports and people not being able to account for internally generated funds. You know, we're talking about 8.5 million for the Black Stars and everything in between. 500 athletes to represent Ghana at the 13th African Games. And The games, scheduled to take place from March 8 to March 23, will witness Ghana's participation in events such as football, athletics, boxing, badminton, cycling, swimming, tennis, table tennis, and triathlon. I see the sports minister in there. But you see, we could mass up $8.5 million for the Black Stars. We have here, we say we are a boxing nation. We are this and that. Go and look into how much has been budgeted for these people. You will cry. Our thinking in this country, even God cry, I don't think he can save us. Your final thoughts, and then we can get out of here. Yet they are being charged to win medals. Dr. Dogbe, we have a minute. We have a minute to go. Let's go.
Good. All of this to me is all about the corruption that our country and Africa as a whole we are facing, right? It's saddening as a Ghanaian to read about the nation's abysmal ranking on the corruption perception index. Our leaders have failed us when it comes to corruption. The level of proven corruption and alleged corruption that we keep hearing to be plaguing Ghana, I think is very, very alarming. And while we expect our leaders to act in upright ways with integrity, especially when dealing with the resources of the nation, the bitter truth is some of them don't, right? These are corrupt, and some of them have seared consciences that they don't even have any regrets at all. So the point here is that we can't rely on these same leaders to tackle corruption in our nation. That is why I think the role of Ghanaians in fighting corruption is crucial and plays a very significant part in creating a transparent and accountable society. So here's a quick thought that we can wrap things up over here. I think that there should be some kind of awareness creation, right, where citizens know their rights and responsibilities, and we get educated about the adverse impact of corruption on society. One is the economic consequences, where growth is hampered because the necessary and allocated funds are diverted, right? The poverty and inequality it unleashes on the people. When resources meant for, say, social welfare programs are diverted. The social injustices, environmental degradation, as we're seeing with illegal mining activities in Ghana. And we hear that some politicians are even granting aid and comfort to some of these illegal operators in the country. Public health risk, and even the very tenets of our society, the fabric of our democracy, right? These are all undermined when corruption runs rampant. The citizens need to be better educated on these adverse effects. That will be my last word, and I hope that we can survive this and come out of it as a nation stronger.
Well, that's how we're going to have to cap off the conversation this morning. But thank you very much, Dr. Wisdom Dogbe. He is a finance analyst and he joined the conversation. Just to clarify, I know someone may say, oh, but he's saying even God can't help us. What I mean is, God works hand in conjunction with us. He can do things on his own. But Ghana, the way we're acting, we are not playing our part in spite of all the boons given by God. Anyway, right before we get into sports, this segment brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, and they're offering you free prostate screening, free fertility screening. That is, if you're a man, prostate; if you're a woman, fertility screening. Reach out to them at any of their branches here in Accra, Pentex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi, Kronomo, Abuehia, behind the Angel Educational Complex, the Stakrade Anaji State, Tema Community 22, Tichiman Hanswa, and the Siaman Zima. Their call lines 0244 867 068. and also 0274-234-321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, bringing us to the end of the news review. Up next, we serve you sports. Do stay.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to AM Sports here with me, Muftau Nabila Abdullah. The National Sports Authority is in the news once again for stories many have described as sordid and murky. Well, the Public Accounts Committee, they have ordered for the arrest of the Northern Regional Director of the National Sports Authority, Alhassan Salamatu, and her accountant for embezzling over 160,000 Ghana cedis. James Kluche Aveji, who is the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, on Monday ordered the National Sports Authority and the Minister of Youth and Sports to direct the police to arrest her immediately.
That office is rotten. I mean, the authority is rotten. Minister, we are directing that the regional director and the accountant at the region should be picked by the police.
Thank you so much.
They should be picked immediately by the police.
Okay. Chairman, thank you. We'll take action.
You are invited to appear before Parliament, a committee of Parliament. You refuse to attend, knowing very well that you have squandered over 160,000 Ghana cedis. And you think that will leave you scot-free? Minister, can you do that, and then let's get the feedback.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, action will be taken, and I'll communicate same to you.
Thank you very much.
In December 2018, the same regional director of the National Sports Authority for Northern Region was accused of embezzling about 78,000 Ghana cedis. And this time around, she's in the news as the Public Accounts Committee has ordered for her arrest. Interestingly, in November last year, the Bank of Ghana also garnished the accounts of the National Sports Authority for failing to pay taxes amounting to about 15.5 million Ghana cedis. What it meant was that since Professor Chumesi took over office as director of the National Sports Authority, they never paid tax. And the Ghana Revenue Authority wrote to the Bank of Ghana, which got the accounts of the National Sports Authority garnished. And let's hear from the Vice Chair of the Public Accounts Committee, who has also censured some members of the authority for writing off a debt that was supposed to be paid by Vodafone. A regional director wrote off the debt without recourse to the head office.
National Sports Authority, there's a lot of rot over there. Rot. Vodafone, Ghana, they owed you 18,900. And then CCMI, Pastor Aziz, they owed you 2,250. And you sat down for this regional head to write it off without permission. Did you get a copy of this audit report? Did you get a copy of this audit report?
Mr. Chairman, yes.
Did you read the report?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
And did you understand the recommendations that were supposed to be taken?
Mr. Chairman, at that point we requested them to reinstate.
That wasn't my question. Did you understand the recommendations?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
And what have you done about these recommendations?
Mr. Chairman, we asked the regional director to comply with the recommendation, that is reinstate the debt as they are and make efforts to recover the money. And this was done. Letters have been issued for the demand of the debts, Mr. Chairman.
And you think just by issuing a letter, they will pay?
Let's stay on the National Sports Authority as Minister of Youth and Sports, Mustafa Yusuf, has revealed that he did not authorize the use of the Accra Sports Stadium for musical concerts during the Christmas festivities. The National Sports Authority Director, Professor Peter Chumesi, had ordered that football activities at the stadium should be put on hold for the entire month of December because the facility had been rented out to the likes of Stoneboy, Shatawale and Co. to use it for musical concerts. The sports minister says he did not authorize that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the main purpose of our sporting activities, sporting facilities, is for us to use those facilities to develop talent and also for competitions, whether national or international competitions.
As Minister for Youth and Sports, did you authorize the suspension of sporting activities at our major stadia, the Accra Sports Stadia and Kumasi Sports Stadia, over the festive period, the December period? Did you, as Minister for Youth and Sports, suspend the use of the stadia?
No.
You did not?
No, I did not.
Are you aware that the National Sports Authority, under the direction of the Director General, suspended use of the sports stadia for footballing activities in the middle of the Ghana Premier League?
Yes, I'm aware. And I did call him to ask, and he said and my major concern was on the pitch, because the pitch during that time, even though the National Sports Authority by law is the authority having the powers to manage all the sporting facilities for us and to ensure that they are in good shape. Once we have a major tournament coming, the African Games, and we have also the Premiership ongoing, my major concern is how much are we getting from these social events that we are giving out to these facilities to, whether even if they use it, we're able to maintain this facility. Is something that I've engaged the Director General that going forward, this should not be done. Because at the end of the day, once whatever you get from them, pay the fees and charges that has been approved for the authority to collect, whatever they are going to get from these social big events that they organize, might not be able to maintain them.
Okay.
Meanwhile, the Director General of the National Sports Authority, Professor Peter Chumesi, said he did nothing wrong by renting out the facility for musical concerts.
The calculations that we have done with the various events, which have a certain component of it, which we call the pitch insurance cover, is able to restore. It's able to restore. I think if you remember, before we shifted our sporting activities to other stadia, we had made mention of this to all stakeholders, that in December, a particular period will be used for other events which are not sporting. And the revenue for it should be able to recover entirely everything. And if you remember, by January 9th, my minister sent a visitor, inspection team, which was led by Chief Director here. And I think I have all this evidence here, to come and check whether we have been able to recover the pitch. And it's fully done.
You still have not answered my question.
It's fully done. The usage of the stadium for other purposes, like, for example, congresses. I think MPP, NDC congresses, they were all held there. They were all held there. Other non-sporting activities occurring in our stadia, it's not new. This is not the first time Professor Chumesi is granting permission for the usage of the facility for other non-sporting. It's done all the time. Even in independence celebration, we did it in Tamale, we did it in Cape Coast Stadium, we did it in Kumasi Babaya Sports Stadium. We do it. But the question is, are you able to recover it and get back the sporting activity? Yes, we do. We're able to recover.
So
that is exactly what we have done.
Interesting one there. Now, let's hear from the flag bearer of the NDC, John Dramani Mahama. He has said that the new NDC administration will partner with the Ghana Football Association to build a national team, that is the Black Stars, predominantly with home-based players. He says the recent failure of the senior national team in continental and global competitions is due to the fact that the players do not train together for a long time.
We just came from the African Cup of Nations, and we performed abysmally, disastrously. And we performed abysmally because we are not growing our football. We are not, before we used to have the Colts, and every district used to organize its Colts League, and they picked the promising players from there. We used to have the academicals. The schools used to play against each other, and we picked the promising players from there before we come to under 17 and then all the other age groups. Unfortunately, all that has collapsed. And so we're going to work with the Football Association to start catching them young from when they are young, so that we can train them and give them to local teams. They will play, get experience before, if they even want to travel abroad, they can travel. But we will build the new Black Stars based on homegrown players, domestic players who have trained together for a long time and work as a team. And then we'll bring the foreign ones to come and blend with them. If you bring only foreign players, they don't play together, they play in their Indian. And then when it's time for competition, you bring them and come and tell them to play. It won't work. The core of the Black Stars must be made by domestic players who have played together for a long time. We'll keep camping them and they keep practicing together. And then when we are going for a competition, we can bring some of the foreign players to join the domestic players, and you'll see that we'll have a better team. And so we're going to overhaul Ghana football in collaboration with the Ghana Football Association. And all the football associations from the district up, you are going to be busy, because we'll send you resources so that you can hold football galas in your districts, and you identify the players for us. And when you identify the players, we will give them scholarships, we'll send them to secondary school, we'll watch them as they grow and they play, and eventually they'll end up in the national teams. And so we'll do all this in collaboration with the Ghana Football Association.
In the next couple of weeks, about 54 countries will join Ghana for the African Games 2023. Ghana won the right to host the event in 2018, and the country has been putting together its facilities to be able to host the 29 sporting disciplines expected to assemble in Ghana for the event that will start on March 8 and end on March 23. My colleague Fentio Tahiro Fentio visited the Boteman Sports Complex, one of the main areas earmarked to host the games, and he's come through with this report. And this is our wrap-up AM Sports here with me, Muftau Nabila Abdullahi.
Welcome to the Boteman Sports Complex. This will be the home of the 13th Africa Games at a cost of $145 million. This facility is newly built and will host 10 of the 26 sporting disciplines that will take place here in Accra. Come on, let's go inside. I'll show you around. The road to Boteman Sports Complex is nearing completion and connects the facility to the Temamoto Way on the south side and East Legon Hills to the north. Inside the walled complex are 6 main structures, each with a distinct purpose. There's the dome, the green building, the red building, the blue building, and the administration block. Upon entry into the facility, the dome is the conspicuous first structure that meets the eye. It is a multi-purpose sports hall with a seating capacity of 500 people. It is designated to host events such as handball, judo, karate, and taekwondo. It comes complete with changing rooms, bathrooms for both athletes and spectators, and a cafeteria area. It is the only indoor competition area not fully covered, with the north and south sides both left open. This has raised concerns about harsh weather conditions like rains and heavy winds possibly disrupting competition. At the time of our visit, the facility appeared completed. The green building is the ultra-modern hard-court tennis mini stadium with a seating capacity of 1,000 people. This is where all the tennis action will take place. It comes complete with fitted seats, VIP seating, commentators' boxes with a tennis net, all already faked. It is an impressive edifice that will become one of the biggest attractions of the Boteman Sports Complex. Apart from the competition tennis courts, which has a seating capacity of 1,000, just outside of it are the warm-up courts. There's 4 of them in total, fully fitted and ready for competition. And for any of you that might be in doubt as to how much Team Ghana could put this into use, a reminder that in 2015, Wisdom Na and George Darko combined to win Ghana a gold medal in the men's double tennis event. So tennis is actually one of those sporting disciplines that could give Ghana a medal, and these courts will be playing a key role with regard to that. The red building is the main multi-sport hall. It comes with a seating capacity of 1,000 spectators. This will be the venue of 4 main events: boxing, badminton, volleyball and weightlifting. It comes equipped with commentator boxes and VIP seating. At the time of our visit, this appears to be the structure with the most work remaining, with contractors still on site working on critical areas such as fixing the air conditioning. But contractors told us they're confident work will be completed in a couple of weeks. The blue building is the Aquatic Center, which houses a brand new 9-lane Olympic swimming pool. It has a spectator capacity of 1,000, with some of it apportioned to VIP seating. And there are 2 yet to be completed mini cafeterias. This is one of the things I'm most excited about here at the Boteman Sports Complex, the Aquatic Center. And it's not just a competition swimming pool that has been put up here. There is a warm-up pool right here, and what you see here is a 9-lane warm-up pool. And it's the place where all of the athletes who will be competing will come in and warm up. It's relatively shorter than the competition pool itself. This is only 25 meters long, half of the length of the competition pool. And right across, if you just follow me, is where the competition pool itself is. And there you see a 9-lane competition pool. It's Olympic standard, and Ghana has a very budding swimming scene. Abeku Jackson has set the pace many times. In fact, the Bukom Boxing Arena, or the Snit Sports Emporium, which has a pool of its own, an Olympic-sized swimming pool, does not have a warm-up swimming pool, or does not have a warm-up track. This one does, and this, for me, with 1,000 people seated here, could be one of the biggest attractions of these particular games. And beyond the games itself, this presents us with an avenue and opportunity to host multiple swimming competition, international swimming competitions. The Snit Sports Emporium has already hosted a number of swimming competitions, international swimming competitions in Ghana, but this takes it to another level. Water for the pool, as well as the entire water supply of the complex, will come from this 130,000 litre water storage facility, which sources its water from 2 boreholes constructed inside the complex. The recreational area of the complex comes complete with tartan tracks that can host track and field events. But work still remains to be done until it's ready for use, with the lanes yet to be ruled on the track, and grassing on the field remains an ongoing process. Joy Sports has also confirmed this is not a certified Mundo track, and records run here will not be accepted by World Athletics. The grassworks on the lawns remain one of the busiest aspects still being worked on inside the complex. The harsh weather conditions not making it easier for the grass to grow faster. There are 4 car parks inside the Boteman Sports Complex with a combined capacity of over 600 cars. There are also 40 parking lots for disabled persons, with 12 spots assigned for motorbikes. Government has indicated it will convert the complex into a university for sports development after the Africa Games. Hence, the administration block, which currently houses offices and meeting rooms for officials of the Games. These will then be converted into an admin block for the university after the competition. And then there is the absolute best thing about the Boteman Sports Complex. All of it will be self-powered. Let me explain. What you see behind me is a treatment plant for waste, which is converted into gas to power the facility. And of course, the capacity here will be dependent on how much waste actually comes into this particular facility. So the more people use it, the more it can actually power itself. But for sure, there's ECG and there's generator plants as backup. But the thought that actually went into this is absolutely laudable. And so when we host the rest of Africa, rest assured, the power will be constantly supplied. From the Boteman Sports Complex, Fentu, Tahir Fentu, for Joy News.
Welcome back on the AM show, and I'm not here alone. Let's welcome aboard Sweetie Abochi. She's back with us. Put it there.
Oh.
Fist bump. I got you there.
Yes, you got me.
The only one. So we're talking now about the air quality in Accra. Recently, Accra has notched the unfavorable reward, if you like, of being the world's worst air quality related city, outpacing cities notorious for pollution like Delhi and Beijing. Now, data gathered by IQ Air indicates a staggering air quality index, AQI, of 238, catapulting Accra to the top spot. Now, this, of course, is worrying. We ask, what does this mean for our health? What are the implications? Well, we'll be exploring those issues with our guests, starting with Venan Sondo. He is CSO and Principal, Shentafrique Academy, Project Director for NetCycle. Mr. Sondo, good morning. Thank you for joining the conversation. Hello, sir. You would have to unmute for me, please.
Good morning, sir. Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining me together with Sweetie Abochi, my co-host. How did we get here, in simple terms? The air quality, I know it is measured practically every day in different cities, and we know of Brazil and some cities there, how polluted, China, India, among others. But in recent years, we've been seeing Accra going to the very top, and here we are again. What accounts for this?
Well, it's certainly a combination of issues. I've not seen that report specifically, but I think it's clearly a combination of issues which has to do with road vehicle usage, emissions from indoor cooking, because 70% of the population uses firewood to cook, our untarred roads, and several other industry emissions. So it's a combination of issues, not just necessarily curbside emission from cars.
And we do know that, recently we hit as high as 371. Now, that is in the hazardous category. It basically means that the air you are breathing is significantly more polluted than those in other major cities around the globe. Around the same time we hit 371, New Delhi in India notes 190. Then you have Sarajevo, Bosnia and Herzegovina, with 182. The next was Mumbai, India, with 173, and then Beijing, China, with 167. Now, this was just a few days ago, I think over the weekend. And mind you, the difference between Ghana, that is Accra, Ghana, and Delhi, India, 193.71. Sweetie, almost twice the number.
And it's also 57 times the WHO
acceptable
figure. So we are way past the deadline zone, and we're breathing in this air. I spoke with Joshua Samoa on Sunday, who's the lead meteorologist at the Ghana Meteo
They say that is not in their purview, right?
No, they said they don't measure air.
Exactly.
if anything can be done about it, it comes from governments with policies and, you know, and then I'm thinking, so what's up with this emissions levy and how does this play into the quality of air? Because you were just saying, Mr. Sondo, that it comes from the exhaust, fumes from exhaust are bad roads and all that. So at what point do we bridge the gap between these actions and government's action to ensure that the air that we breathe in this country is safe?
I said it's a combination of issues. And I think you're referring to micrograms per cubic meter, which is more like the uniform measurement of, I'm not sure whether that was PM 2.5 or PM 25, but I've not seen that report. I'll say
so what we're referring to,
that is very high.
What we're referring to, Mr. Sondo, is the PM 2.5.
Yeah, the
PM
fine
2.5,
particle
yes.
matter.
That is certainly very high compared to the fact that the WHO standard is 15 micrograms per cubic meter. But as I said, I've not seen the report, but what I would say is a combination of issues. If you look at Delhi and Beijing, for example, they seem to have much higher emission problems compared to Ghana. It may have been the time of the year with Hamatan and all that things sort of which accumulate together and make it very high. But roadside emission is not the only cause of PM 2.5 emissions. I mentioned again that 70% of the population use firewood to cook. And that is why you can see government actually being one of the first countries to sign the so-called internationally traded mitigation outcomes agreement with Switzerland, where Switzerland would invest in Ghana to actually produce and deploy more clean cook stoves so that more homes can have access to clean cooking technology. So it's more like you have to sort of put in place mechanisms that help the population to have access to cleaner technology. With the emissions, the carbon emissions levies for vehicles, it certainly helps, but then there's a school of thought that says this would certainly not prevent people from using their cars. In the end of the day, if that extra revenue helps the government implement some of their actions as stated in their nationally determined outcomes, then it probably goes a long way in the long term to help the government to deploy technology, higher LPG penetration as well, clean cook stoves, and maybe even incentives for particular vehicles so that people can actually acquire cleaner vehicles. Other countries have use other mechanisms. Look at Bogota, for example, in Colombia. What they did was, okay, we would electrify our bus fleets, would actually make more bicycle lanes so that more people can use bicycles to work and actually use buses to work, basically keeping their cars home, right? And those are sort of other mechanisms that help with the reduction of pollution from curbside emission in the long term. But then it's more like a step, whether it's in the right direction or not, but it certainly helps them in the long term to sort of accrue the sort of revenue they would need to deploy cleaner technology to curb the impact.
And you just made mention of some crucial points. So per this statistic and everything, we get to see the breakdown, what is causing this. So you look at the major sources of air pollution, at least related to our case in Accra, and you would know that road transport is one of the crucial areas. It contributes 39%, an estimate of Accra's PM 2.5 concentrations. That's from road transport. Then approximately 70%, of course, of daily commuters in Ghana use privately owned minibuses. We call them trotro. So a lot of them, a huge chunk of the problem, almost 40%, has to do with road transport, especially the trotros and others. They are very old. You can see the emissions, right? I mean, even if you're close by them. So that is the statistic. Then you get to industries and manufacturing in some parts of Accra, even if you're heading into the Tema enclave. They also contribute 11% in terms of the pollution. Then there is also automobile spraying and carpentry, also producing, quite a chunk. Then we have waste generation, and then the Harmattan contributing just about 5% of what we are facing. So these are some of the things coming together to create the problems that we see. But the good thing, if I might add, before Joshua Asamoah comes in, is that per this ranking, the AQI, it's going to be reducing. So last Sunday, I believe, is when we had the 370 plus.
Yeah.
It's going to be reducing to about 70 something by February the 10th, which is a Saturday. But
Okay.
how to maintain it or even reduce it is the problem.
Yeah. But we also have Joshua Samoa, who's a forecaster at Ghana Meteo Agency, joining us. Joshua, welcome. We spoke on Sunday, and you mentioned that this is not something that can go away by our doing. But what I'm curious about this morning is that as at September last year, areas like Kaneshi, some major parts of Accra also experienced this. It recorded the same PM 2.5 levels, here. How come that we haven't done anything, or have you recommended anything to be done that's not being done yet? How are we still coming back to this issue?
Well, for us as a meteorological institution, what we can do is to warn of the meteorological situations that can compound these effects on air quality. And so when he was talking about how Harmattan affects it, this usually comes during the dry season. So what we can do as an institution is just give an indication of the quantum of dust that is expected into the country during the dry season and the possibility of it affecting the quality of the air, and expect that people take some precautionary measures to deal with it. I'm not sure we can do beyond that.
When you say people, you mean the ordinary citizens?
Yes, and then basically, so when the dust comes, you want to adapt to the conditions that it comes with. And so we'll be talking to the ordinary person in the country. But also in terms of policy, I'm not really sure if we're going to ask that they get air purifiers for homes in the country, or probably well, maybe we can decide to find ways and means of dealing with the dust that comes during the dry season. But I've not really thought of how we can do that. I'm sure it's just the way that the individual can deal with the effects that the Harmattan comes with.
Do you think that this emissions levy, controversial emissions levy, which some CSOs are calling for the withdrawal, will in any way help reduce this issue of polluting air pollution in Accra?
So I was telling you the last time that we only get this high concentration of PM 2.5 during the dry season. But throughout the year, we have the concentration happening in Accra due to the transport, emission from industries, and all of those things. And so these are things that we would want to work to reduce or minimize, so that when the dust comes in during the dry season, the effects will not be as high as what we are seeing now. We're only seeing very high concentration of PM 2.5 in Accra, for instance, because the air is already polluted. The dust concentration in other parts of the country is actually higher than what we are seeing in Accra. But
like how high? How high is it?
So if you go to the northern portions of the country, visibility has been reduced to below 1 kilometer. But for us in Accra, we are getting around 2 kilometers and 3 kilometers. So that means the concentration in those areas are a bit higher compared to what we are seeing here. But then the PM and the quality of the air is poorer in Accra than these areas because of the already polluted atmosphere that we have here in Accra from transport, industries, and all those emissions, even burning of tires and all those things happening in Accra. And so if there's a way we can minimize that one, then we are in effect reducing the impacts that we'll have when the Harmattan gets here. That's what we would be advocating for. But I'm not sure if we have gotten to the point where we can totally eliminate probably these cars, or probably move to electric vehicles to minimize it. But it's going to be a good way to reduce the pollutants that we have in the atmosphere.
You think that we have enough data or access to data to help us stay informed on the quality of air as and when we need to take precaution?
Quite significantly. Well, in some few years ago, we didn't have that kind of information to even tell of the quality of the air. In 2016, I recall very much that we had very high dust concentration that led to cancellation of flights, both domestically and then internationally. So the dust around that time in Accra was way higher than what we are seeing now. But because we had no information on the quality of the air, we couldn't report the air quality around that time. So we couldn't say that Accra was probably the dirtiest city in the whole of the world. But in the last years, we have information on air quality, and so we are able to speak to that data. So I can say that we've improved, and we can take decisions based on this data that we are now getting.
Were you the ones that first warned of this air pollution, this level of air pollution? Was it Ghana Meteo?
So what Ghana Meteo did was...
Just on the back of you saying that you've improved, so I'm just curious.
So what Ghana Meteo does is just warn of dust intrusion into the country. When we expect that there's going to be an intensification of the dusty situations, we warn and tell people that this has a possibility of reducing the quality of the air within certain parts of the country. So that's what we do. We actually did that somewhere in December when we sent out the advisory of the impending Harmattan and its implication on the people within the country.
So in other words, Joshua, as far as you are concerned, you don't measure this. So you source out the information and you put out warnings, right?
Yes. So EPA measures the quality of the air. They have sensors in parts of Accra. And so what we do is use the information that EPA has on the air quality and also look at atmospheric conditions that are likely to compound these problems that we're having and warn people ahead of time on the quality of air that is expected maybe in the next 2 days, the next 1 week, or probably in the next 2 weeks.
Hold for me, Mr. Asamoah. I know you're really tight, pressed for time, but I'll come back to you briefly. Let me bring in Vanan Sondo. So we also know that about 28,000 Ghanaians lose their lives every year on the back of air pollution related. I know Agbubulushi, back then, you remember the smelting, the turning of metals into this and that. It was referred to a specific portion. I don't like using the Sodom and Gomorrah bit. It was referred to as one of the most polluted places on planet Earth, and still that categorization continues. You look at that and the health concern this poses. I see a lot more people now using masks, not because of COVID-19, but because of the nature of the weather. Asthma, if you're asthmatic, it's going to be problematic around this time. Those who suffer from different, these seasonal fevers and all of that, the flu, it's not been easy. And then now we are also hit with meningitis, which today is the banner headline in the Daily Graphic. What do you make of all of it in terms of the health consequences, the health hazards this poses?
Funny enough, Ghana is one of the 15 countries in Africa with an air quality standard as a policy instrument. And funny enough, from that 28,000 you mentioned, according to the Clean Cooking Alliance, 16,000 of those related untimely deaths were associated to indoor clean cooking. So it's, as I said, it's not generally about air pollution, roadside population. The issue here is the other sort of factors that contribute towards an increase in those untimely casualties for members of the population. Certainly, using masks is sort of preventive. We have to look at in the long term because even if there's no Harmattan, if there's no dry season, there's always going to be issues that lead to untimely death. And asthma has certainly become a huge issue, but asthma has always been there. But then you relate it to a temporary increase in air quality, a temporary reduction in air quality standard that is causing asthma? No. So I would generally say that it is a very complicated issue. But we can't really blame it on one particular thing. You have to look at a culmination of issues that are leading to that particular problem. And so it needs to be tackled from a holistic approach with respect to, of course, there's a drive to increase LPG access at the moment. And the measures, in the dry season, what could you do? You could literally water down some of the roads to suppress the dust on some of the roads, which is certainly a problem. And you can also relate to testing of cars. Most of the cars that are tested, whether they actually fit for purpose before they get on the road. that is another issue. But it is a combination of approaches which needs to be sort of implemented holistically to ensure that we actually are addressing the problem gradually and systematically in the long term.
But these are wild fluctuations, right? I mean, we're projecting that by Saturday, the 10th, it would have come down to the 70s range. But if you look at that 70-something all the way to 373, that's from 73, 373. That's a difference of about 300 points in the AQI. So you spoke about Ghana being one of the 15 countries in Africa able to at least maintain some balance. But like you said, it's not always the Harmattan. I've heard of previous years where we've gone pretty high. So what more do you feel we can do in that regard?
I think it's public awareness, more or less, early warning systems, cautioning schools about this, that they can open if it's very high. Schools can maybe stay at home. People can actually have the opportunity to work from home. Basically, as I said, dust suppression on some of our polluted sort of on-cloud roads, and even industry stepping up. I mean, Joshua mentioned burning of tires. You have entities like Access Bank, which recently started an initiative to use car tires to produce sandals for impoverished communities. So it's more like small combination of issues, everybody playing their part, but then everybody needs to know what exactly needs to be done to actually contribute towards reducing the problem in the long term. It's a whole combination of issues, but most importantly is early warning systems for citizens so that they can be able to stay at home. They can really understand. You can say AQI, but some people say, what is AQI? Nobody understands what the air quality index is. So it's more like informing people about what AQI is. If the metro says this is higher than usual, then maybe stay at home or wear a mask if you have to sort of go to work, or literally if you're sort of industry, kind of tell your workers to stay at home, or maybe reduce production in the day, not sort of unusually increase air quality. Because Joshua also mentioned that it is because the cities already has an already lower air quality standard anyway. So any increment then actually sort of exacerbates the problem.
So given the hazardous level of this and you saying that early warning signs are the best way to handle these, I'm just curious to know, are there any collaborative efforts or initiatives between you and government, or do you intend to do anything to cover these areas?
Well, as an entity at Change Africa, we literally enable the circular economy, and we sort of deploy aspects that unlock access to sustainable choices. Air quality is not something that we deal with at the moment, but certainly at the level of clean cooking, where I happen to be the honorary executive financial secretary for the Clean Cooking Association of Ghana, we're certainly doing a lot in terms of assisting industrial manufacturers and kind of raising awareness about indoor air cooking, so that people can understand the consequences, have access to cleaner cooking technology, and then in the long term really understand the impact, not just to their health, but the wider implications to climate change, because PM 2.5 are certainly one of the clearly identified climate change causes. So we have to do a lot more to reduce the excessive use of firewood for cooking, which is obviously the fourth source of choice for cooking around Ghana.
All right, so to conclude the conversation, gentlemen, let's just walk through before we take your final comments, Mr. Samuel and Mr. Sondo. So how do you protect yourself? Some of what has been proffered, we have Mr. Sondo, who started talking about some of them. So one of those would be, for example, limiting outdoor activity and staying indoors as much as possible, especially, Sweetie, during peak pollution hours. So you know that the morning, when everybody is going to work, it's a peak hour.
Yeah.
Sometime during rush hour in the middle of the day, but usually morning and evening. Yes. So when people are going to and returning to work, lots of pollution. You would want to protect yourself as much as possible.
Close your windows, because that's how the air enters your room. Yeah. And if you can afford it, get a purifier, an air purifier, because whatever you're breathing in, it's not safe.
Yeah, so the HEPA filters, those with HEPA filters tend to help. And the commonest one, you could use an N95 or a KN95 mask, which I've been seeing some people now use. It also helps filter some of the particles that would get in there. And I'm insisting N95 or KN95, not just any other mask, especially for schools. Openings, plugging holes around so that dust doesn't come in. And for some, they would merely say stay indoors as much as possible. And if you have those plants that, absorb some of these things, if you have them at home, this is where you benefit.
And
you
it shouldn't be so hard because we've experienced COVID. We were able to mask up, we stayed indoors, we protected ourselves. Yeah. So basically, it's just repeating all the precautionary, measures that we engaged in during COVID and doing the same things. Wash your hands, wear a mask, stay indoors if you can. Any final words from you, Mr. Sondo, before we wrap this up?
And of course, I know Mr. Asamoah is still with us, so we'll take his final words as well.
For us, we sort of work in the rural communities with a project Net Cycle where we sort of collect the waste fish nets from fishing communities. Some of them burn them, some of them burn their waste, and that is also sort of an increase in local air quality issues. To advise them not to burn their waste. It's certainly an issue that can be said around Accra, where there is rampant burning of waste, which also increases the problem. I think is we have a lot of policy instruments that we can use. We have you probably cannot talk about this without mentioning the increase in cars within Accra from Uber and Yango and Bolt, which has definitely increased the number of cars around Accra. During these times when there is a lot of this ardent increase in air quality, they could possibly sort of do some sort of incentives where if 2 or 3 people use a Bolt car or an Uber car, then they have kind of a bonus. That will literally make more people, keep their cars at home or sort of use single Uber cars or Bolt cars or Yango cars around the city. Those are things that they could do to help contribute to the problem. Like if 2 or 3 people pull in a car, then they get sort of an incentive which kind of makes people sort of keep their cars at home or not use single Uber cars around. Those are some of the things that we would suggest generally. But of course, it's a huge concern. And if you have the opportunity to stay at home, use a mask or air purifiers, as you have said. But those who don't have the chance, use a mask or just stay home.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sondo. That's Venan Sondo, who's a CSO and Principal Shine Afrique Academy Project Director for Net Cycle. Now, Joshua Asamoah, any final words before we let you go?
Well, yes. We actually seeing a reduction in the dust concentration in the atmosphere. And so we expect that we'll be getting reduced concentration in the atmosphere, which will probably increase the quality of the air within the country. But that also comes with a bit of a challenge because as the moisture comes from the ocean, the dust already in the atmosphere is going to accrete this moisture. That is also going to cause a very poor visibility in the early hours of the mornings, especially for places within the forest and mountainous parts of southern Ghana. And so if you are using the roads in the early hours within the Ashanti, the eastern, the western regions, parts of the central and greater Accra regions, you'd want to be very cautious. From midweek towards the weekend, we'll be seeing very poor visibility in the early hours. But during the daytime, visibility will be quite okay, and we'll be able to go about our normal activities. We'll probably get some 1 or 2 rainfall in southern Ghana towards the weekend, and that will bring a lot of the dust down, making the air quality a bit better.
Thank you so much, Joshua Asamoah, who's a forecaster with GMED. So if you already have respiratory issues, please, this is a time for you to be particularly careful about how you go about, activities outdoors. But let's usher in the next conversation. Benjamin, yesterday, I saw that GLOSAG and some other labor unions had hoisted red flags on their premises because still on the issue of the 15% VAT. And even when we went to the Opera Square yesterday, people were saying that although Cabinet says it has, or it is reconsidering it, they haven't officially said they're scrapping it off. So the questions we are asking today is, has Cabinet actually scrapped the 15% VAT for above lifeline level consumers of electricity? And if and why President Akufo-Addo also sacked these MMDs days ago.
Yeah.
We are joined by government spokesperson
on governance and security,
yes.
Paul Grave Wachidankwa. He'll be joining us for that conversation up next on the AM show. You don't want to go anywhere. You want to be right here. We'll be right back. Here we are back with government spokesperson on governance and security. Of course, we're going to be talking about a whole raft of issues, including the MMDCEs who have been sacked and their replacements. We'll also talk about the tax system, the taxes that have come up, what cabinet is saying or not saying, and the planned demonstrations. Joining us, Paul Grave Wachidankwa. Paul Grave, thanks for coming.
Thank you, Benjamin.
I've told you this already, but
thank you so much.
Lovely outfit
Thank
today.
you. Thank you very
looking
much.
All, and I see the cufflinks are UN.
Is that by AZ Code in Kanda?
Oh, wow.
My sister and the husband,
Wow,
they
wow,
own it. So.
wow. I have some lovely
I should take
designers in there.
Thank
but,
you. Thank you very much.
I think we'll need one of this.
Thank you, Benjamin.
Okay, so but to start off the conversation, yes, you tried to get into the parliamentary race recently, and was it Asante Akim? Was it
Ibuakwa North constituency?
Ibuakwa North. It's Ibuakwa North. Yes. How could I? Because that constituency is a storied constituency, and you have roots in there. Things didn't exactly go your way. Tell me, share with me. Before, during, after, what was it like, and what are you looking forward to in the future? Is it something you'd go for again?
Well, so Benjamin, a very good morning to you, and very good morning to the good people of Achime Ibuakwa North constituency, to the sitting MP, the Honorable Gifty Chumampofo, to the new candidate, Nana Addo-Frimpong, Chief Buffalo, and to all the aspirants who contested in the NPP parliamentary primaries. Yes, of course, there were 5 aspirants that stood. The Honorable Gifty Chumampofo had 202 votes to her that were casted. I had 76 votes that were casted. Nana Addo-Frimpong Buffalo had 222. Obeng Mensah had 4 votes casted, and Nana Kojo had 4 votes casted. And so I think that it was such.
So you placed third, basically.
I placed third. It was a very healthy competition. It was very keenly contested. I'm glad that I put my best foot forward to be able to serve my constituency. I'm also glad that we have a new candidate in the constituency. I've pledged my support for Nana Addo-Frimpong, also pledged my support for the entire constituency work. I would continually serve in my constituency and support my constituency. There are ongoing projects that I have in the constituency which will be completed. There are other more projects that I will bring into the constituency as a member of the constituency. And so the future is still bright as a young politician for me, serving in the government of President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, and also looking forward to the leadership of Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia as President of the Republic of Ghana and now flag bearer of the New Patriotic Party.
Right, so all these votes were cast for different personalities, and yes, you placed third. So moving forward, this is something you will go at again?
Well, it's early days. I would say that I'm back to my official role that has been given to me to represent the government on issues concerning governance and security. We are aware that this is a very difficult year for us as a country. It's an electioneering year. We need to ensure that we lock all the holes as it relates to our security. We also need to ensure that we continually block the threats of terrorism against us. And so I keep very slim focus on my role now. The future will determine what the next path would be for me as it relates to my continual service in the government and also my continual service in the party. But yes, we are here to serve whichever role opportunities that are given to us. In this light, I would just ask that my brother Chief Buffalo continues the work that he's been given, and he has our support. I mean, he's a young person like I am, so there's no need putting up an ambition just when you have lost an election. It's to throw maximum support against the candidate that has won. And Buffalo and I were in University of Ghana together. We're in Commonwealth as well. He was my chief vandal.
Oh, you're an old vandal.
Yes, he was my chief vandal. So he has my support, and I think that would support him with all the strength and energies and finances that we have.
How healthy is the NPP now? You just spoke about the difficulties. It's not just a difficult year for Ghana, it's a difficult year for your party, isn't it? I mean, you're hoping to break the 8, but some people say you might as well forget about that. We've got some money in recent times, but things are pretty stark. How do you think the NPP is going to be able to scrape through?
Benjamin, the New Patriotic Party is the party of leaders, and that's how I always would like to situate the conversations. And as a political party, in every electioneering year, you know how difficult it is for political parties in electioneering year, for governments that are ending their term, especially the government of President Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo. The New Patriotic Party does not just only seek to break the 8, but the New Patriotic Party seeks to win successive elections, and this is what we are desiring to do, especially with...
And if you win this time, it would be historic.
Absolutely. I mean, because then every single political party, which is the 2 major political parties, have had an opportunity over the period from 1992 till date. So we can say that everyone has had a fair share of governance, and the Ghanaian electorates have seen how well each political party governs. And I am certain, really, that under the leadership of Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, who tomorrow will be outlining a clearer vision and bold decisions for the future of this country in terms of making sure that every single thing that we aspire ourselves to as a year of possibility and years of possibilities ahead of us would be actualized in our lifetime and in our years. And so, yes, we have some hurdles to overcome, but in the midst of the hurdles that we have to overcome, we would remind the Ghanaian people of the desired future that is ahead of us. And you know that if you are supposed to compare, and I like to do this very much often from 1992 till date, there's not been a certain vice president who has been so industrious, out of the box thinking, innovative vice president who has been able to assist the sitting president in the manner in which Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has done from 2008 as a running mate to becoming the vice president of the Republic of Ghana to winning for the first time the flag bearership of the New Patriotic Party, overwhelmingly 61% of the delegates entrusted leadership onto him. And once an election is done and a leader is chosen, the entire rank and file of the New Patriotic Party supports that new leader. And we have thrown our maximum support behind Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. And I know that the Ghanaian people have a lot of trust in him. The Ghanaian people believe that he's a person of integrity.
They do.
The Ghanaian people believe that he's a person of character and nobility. The Ghanaian people know that he's the right person who understands the economy of this world, the economy of Ghana, is able to steer affairs very well. And I have extreme confidence in Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. And I stated that Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, for me, is the darling boy of the Gold Coast then and now Ghana.
So you said a number of things. I'll just walk you through a few others. You say he enjoys wide support. Of course, there's a base for your party. You speak about his integrity and all of that. And this is not to impugn his integrity, but a lot of people have said that what he said in the past versus what we see now are in diametric opposition, stark opposition. I mean, take November 2023. Dr. Theo Champong, an economist, said Bawumia's problem, in fact, in this election will be his economic messiah tag, which was used time and again. Bawumia, as President Akufo-Addo would say, and look at where we are in the economic ledge. So some would ask, based on what exactly are we to vote for a person like this? You speak of integrity. Some also say that he's been duplicitous, that he's not been honest in a lot of his commentary then and now, and that the very same questions, 100 and something, 70 something, that he was posing back then to the NDC, Emisa Arthur and others, could be posed to him now, and he would have failed even more. And my final bit, there's this, there's a broadcast journalist with Peace FM, Mr. Mafo, who recently was saying, you know what, to the vice president, instead of going round delivering lectures like he's done time without number, he should find a running mate. Why? He feels former President John Mahama has been marketed. He is there. He's a one-time president, two-time contender, now on his third leg of contending. Everyone knows him. But you, in this slot, you are not known like that. Why not focus on naming your running mate and then running with that selling rather than going round delivering lectures? We already know what you have in terms of lectures.
But
how do you react to this?
It's difficult to say that Alhaji Dr. Mahmood Bawumia is not known. I mean, it's
not to say that he's not known.
Yes, I mean, like, politically.
But comparatively, get your running mate and run rather than talking.
I think that I would entirely disagree with your colleague journalist from Despite Me. I think, to be honest, Alhaji Dr. Mahmood Bawumia is marketed not just in Ghana, in Africa, and globally. He's very much known. And I would like to situate it like this. Dr. Mahmood Bawumia is a trained economist, okay? Put it in a cardiologist, someone who does heart surgeries.
Are you going to talk about a team?
Well, so because you see, you can't isolate the issues, and I need to be able to put it in proper perspective. A cardiologist does heart operations, and a cardiologist does not work alone. He works with nurses, would work with anesthesia, would work with other surgeons who would come in. They'll need internal medicine. They'll need a whole constellation of people, an entire cosmopolitan of surgeons and medics who would be around the table to ensure that a heart surgeon is successful. Now, if you look at Alhaji Dr. Mahmood Bawumia as the greatest economist, and I've stated that Alhaji Dr. Mahmood Bawumia is one of the foremost greatest economists of the millennium in this country. And
oh wow!
Absolutely. And you cannot take away the fact that he understands the global trend of economy. You cannot take away the fact that he has rejuvenated. And I've stated continually that if you look at the strive on digitalization and how well we have driven the agenda and how people stated that someone who is an economist has now moved into digitalization. I've stated that people who made those statements were reading from an old manuscript, because if you want to really understand the new age of economy, you need to understand the digital economy, because that is where we have got into as a new world. In the new world order, we're looking at digital economy. We're looking at how you can sync your digital system to already existing systems in the world, which is why if you fly from Accra to Heathrow, you can immediately connect from point A to point B because the system is linked to one another, which is what we sought to do with the drive of digitalization. We've sought to digitalize major institutions in this country. Today, if you go to Hospital A, you don't need to look for an old file. You just need to put your name into a system and you'll find that. If you go to Hospital A in Accra and you move to Tamale and you are ill, all you need to do is to just put your name in the system, and it's extremely digitalized. We've digitalized the birth and death. We have ensured that every single individual who is born in this country has a unique identifiable number. You remember when we were young and we used to travel to London, people were very excited with getting an NI. You remember, people still hold on to their NI today. And that when you are ill and you get back to London, you can immediately go and see your GP. And so really, that is where we're looking into taking the world, that once you have your card, which is the Ghana card, or you have your digital address system, or you have your GPS, every single thing that you have is linked and is synced, so that you can easily be found.
Let me just say
that cannot be ruled out at all.
The drive has been going on for decades. Let me just state that. From even Rawlings to Kufuor to Atta Mills to Mahama, this many of the drives we've seen, even with the national identity card, the Ghana card, has been going on for a long time. Yes, you would say that the MPP has come and actualized a lot of these. Beyond digitalization or digitization, because digitalization is then where you monetize or weaponize, if you may put it that way, digitization. What other credit would you give to Dr. Bawumia by way of the economy. You refer to him as, and just to clarify, the foremost economist of the millennium. Is it Ghanaian, African, or global?
Rate it in every way.
No,
rate it in every way.
So the foremost
from Ghana
economist
to Africa
globally.
to globally.
Because
rate it anywhere.
I'm sorry,
wherever
it's almost laughable for me.
No. If you look at it very objectively, Benjamin. If you look at it
objectively,
very
based on what metrics?
A lot of metrics.
The finest economist in the world has left us where we are in terms of our GDP. In terms of inflation, in terms of the currency. Do you remember when there was talk about inflation the currency?
Have you checked inflation now?
Inflation has hovered to around 20-something%. It doesn't. You see, I'm always. It's so disingenuous. Okay, when we talk about, first off, even in terms of the averages of inflation. Averages, I'm not talking of the 54 point something. If you look at the averages, we are still at the highest average that we've ever hit within the last 2 decades plus. And then when you look at month-on-month inflation, that's where the devil is. It's like talking about macroeconomics when the micro is horrible.
I've always stated this. I'm not an economist at the base. But the basic thing is that when people go out to buy, when people go out to sell, there are exchanges, and people are able to make ends meet. Okay, and I've stated that yes, if you look at the trajectory of how Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has assisted the sitting president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo.
How is he assisted?
So I'm coming to it. In actualizing the vision, when we came in from 2017 till date, government has been running on policies. Every single policy that the government of Ghana under the leadership of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, assisted by the Vice President Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, has actualized its fulfilled vision. And I've stated that if you look at a policy that begins from a political party angle, you win an election, it becomes a government policy. You are able to actualize those policies very well. It becomes a civic responsibility, such that now when your government is out of power in terms of the leadership of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, there are some policies that would remain in country that has become a civic responsibility. That is when you have achieved your singular aim of every single policy that you have laid out.
Let's check out, since you're talking about the policies of government, let's look at some of what they wrote on. And it was crucial when, in election 2016, the economy and, Yatisikaso and so accommodating and all of that. Let's look at those metrics. Let's look at the debt to GDP ratio. Okay? Let's look at how much the MPP has added on. Over 500 or so billion that has been added on to the 122 billion that you inherited. Let's look at the GDP, so debt to GDP. Let's look at inflation, like I said. And I don't know why sometimes members of your grouping run away from month-on-month inflation, because that keeps going higher. I don't know where you buy from, what you buy, and all of that. Then there is our international reserves, for example. It's only recently that I see that it's over 2 point something months. It fell as low as about a month's cover. And now we are looking at the currency as well, still fluctuating wildly in some instances. I know of people who have to make purchases now, and if you're purchasing in dollars, you're paying close to 13 cedis per dollar. Okay, so let's use these metrics. These very same ones that were campaigned upon, these very same things that Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia spoke about. Tell me about them.
Benjamin, I'll tell you one truth, okay? We have gone through some challenges as a country. We've gone through challenges as a world, okay?
Are you going to give me the COVID-19?
No, but Benjamin, you want to live in isolation. You want to live in isolation of that?
Has your team? No. You on the MPP? Have you paid attention?
You won't allow me to respond.
I'll allow you.
I have not even mentioned
I will
Russia.
heckle you because I know where you are going.
No, but allow me.
Allow me, Benjamin. We're tired of
no, Benjamin. You cannot be tired of that. We are. You cannot be tired
because your brother and sister countries have gone past and they are making strides, and you are still complaining.
You cannot be tired of it. The reason why you cannot be tired of it is that every single country was impacted, from America to London to Europe to Middle East to Africa to Asia. Every single country was impacted. And I can tell you for one truth, if it wasn't of the sterling leadership of President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo with the Vice President Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, this country, Ghana, would not be where it is. Benjamin,
what makes you think that?
I'll tell you, so it's leadership.
The proof of the pudding is in the eating. What makes you think someone wouldn't have done better?
Benjamin, we have seen what they have done before.
I'm not talking necessarily about the NDC.
No, but which other person?
What makes you think someone else wouldn't have fared better?
Which other person? We have run significantly for the past 32 years.
You borrowed significantly, over 500 billion. What do you have to show for your borrowing? You have practically precious little to show for your borrowing.
Allow me to expand on.
I will allow you, but where you're going is
Benjamin. You allow me. No, allow me, because the evidences. I think that the evidences of the excellent work of President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo is on the table for the bearing 18-year-old who are going to make decisions on the 7th of December to see.
Well, come that time, we'll find out.
I can enumerate all of them if you give me time. I can enumerate all of them.
Thanks to all those good policies, we are back to the IMF.
No, Benjamin. Do you know how many countries? Do you know how many countries went to the IMF?
No, it's not a matter of how many countries. The circumstances are different for each country.
No, the circumstances are different. But there was one single circumstance.
Many of these countries did not borrow wildly like the MPP did.
There was one single country. There was one single issue that took every single country to the IMF. That was the collapse of global economies.
Collapse.
Absolutely.
Collapse of the global economy. Did you not see? I wouldn't call it that.
Okay, what would you call it? The impact of global economies?
Not collapse.
Okay, the impact of global economies.
Right.
How global economies struggled over the years. You haven't seen that. So really, I think that when we are putting the issues in proper perspectives, allow us to put it in perspectives, because you don't want to paint a picture as though
your perspective, not proper perspective.
Benjamin,
your perspective.
Benjamin, but you see, I can only speak in light of the perspective where I sit from, and then also objectively look at it from where the other person sits from. Because when the lights are on, it doesn't just impact me. When the fuel pump is giving fuel on a daily basis, it doesn't just impact me. When school children are going to school for free under free SHS, it doesn't just impact me. When teachers are being paid, it doesn't just impact me. When nurses are being paid, it doesn't just impact me. When SNIT is increasing pensions allowance, it doesn't just impact me. When we are ensuring that the road is being constructed, it doesn't just impact me. When ambulances are working, it doesn't just impact me. When drones are delivering essential medicine to rural communities, it does not just impact me. When we are ensuring that every single district is having a factory, it does not just impact me. So really, when I put it in perspective from my angle, I also put it in perspective from your angle, and objectively to see the impact that we are making on every single Ghanaian who is benefiting from the leadership of President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and the sterling leadership of Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, who is our flag bearer.
Every Ghanaian. I wonder which Ghanaians you speak to when you go into your constituencies. But I guess come election day, we'll find out. You said a number of things. I'll pick just one of them. I don't want to rehash all of these. You mentioned power. I'll be getting to power shortly because it's a major conversation. But you said every district has got, you know that's not the case. That at one district, one factory has not materialized as you see it. In fact, if we want to go there, you would let me even get into the central refinery that has just come up. And I feel I have nothing against the Chinese. I have nothing against private enterprise coming in. But it's a shame to us that we have Tor sitting there. We sidestepped it for reasons only God knows. Put up this other refinery, and we are basically giving the Chinese a crucial asset. Do you know what refining this crude does for a country? We've left Tor. And I do admit the previous administrations have had their own problems, now Provençal and everything. We've let Tor disintegrate, deteriorate to where it is, just as we've done with Comenda. And now you see Mr. President in his fleet, government officials going to commission Central. Like I said, nothing against the Chinese. I don't care. Private enterprise, it's good. But when you have crucial assets like that, and you would hear that they say, yes, there's some one district, one factory, mix in there, whatever it may be. Are you aware that with the levels they're going to refine at, it's basically going to be the death knell for Tor? Are you aware that they don't have storage systems of their own. They rely on the storage systems of Tor. What sense does that make? Are you aware, per reports, that some of the equipment has to be borrowed from Tor and used for X, Y, and Z? Who does that? So if you want to even go into one district, one factory, and all the shenanigans that have been painted, that in itself would be something. You say one district, one factory. Why haven't you revived Ekumfi? You promised time without number to revive Ekumfi. It's a rust bucket. It's a rust bucket. So let's not even go there. But you spoke about power, right? You spoke about power and keeping the lights on and everything. I just want us to walk through this. You gave Ghanaians, right? You claimed there was free power for some basic consumers during the COVID period. Now, you have had a COVID-19 levy that has been on the books for how long now? Production team, confirm for me. How long has it been? 2.5, 3 years? COVID-19 levy. COVID-19 levy. The only country in the world, it makes absolutely no sense to me. You've been increasing the prices of power for a while. It went down marginally, and then it's been shooting up ever since. And now you are slapping on 15% VAT. This is more like, oh, me
But Benjamin, I don't think that's a true reflection of what it is.
How would you think that is the true reflection?
Because you see, I'm aware that Cabinet met on Friday in relation to the 15% on electricity in terms of VAT. And Cabinet has asked that it be held on.
Held on.
Yes.
We've heard from the grapevine all of these things.
Yes,
There's been no communication to.
Well. I mean, that would. I'm sure that would come in no time. But really to state that, you see, we have systems and operations that work in this country. We have the PRRC that is mandated by the Constitution to ensure that tariffs are reviewed so that you pay for what you use. And even in our time, we have even reduced it significantly as it relates to people who work like artisans. We've reduced it because we have allowed the industries to pay more. And then we have also measured it up with residential usage as well, which wasn't so. Benjamin, we are living in a system where systems must work. If tariffs are not reviewed for you to pay what you use, for the electricity company and the water company to be able to continue to function and then oil their greasing system, then where are we here? So tariffs will be reviewed, and tariffs have been reviewed every significant time based on people's usages, and government always comes in to cushion that.
Government, you do know that this 15% VAT and all of that has nothing to do with utilities and how much we should pay.
You mentioned tariffs. You mentioned tariffs. So I'm hitting on tariffs.
All right.
Okay. Now, the second thing as well is that, you see, Benjamin, we must continually encourage private sector to invest in country. I'm very familiar with Sento, and I'm very familiar with the investment. I think that private sector and government appreciates the level of investment that is being made. Okay. Now, you talk about...
We'll continue going into the private sector because of what people will get into their pockets.
No, I don't think
Rather than do public sector,
I don't think so.
I mean,
because you see,
government officials will do a lot
Benjamin,
of private because that is where the money is.
No, Benjamin.
That's where the corruption is.
No,
let's face it. That's where the corruption is.
I don't think so.
That's where you get your kickbacks and everything.
There is no evidence to show.
Oh, no evidence?
I don't know.
No evidence?
I don't know.
Do you want me to remind you of
I don't know of any evidence. I don't know
of the PPA and
I don't know of any evidence of anyone who is involved in any corrupt activity by allowing a private investor to invest in a local economy. TOR is a responsibility of the state. Okay? TOR is a responsibility of the state.
So the MPP has been irresponsible with TOR?
No.
Is that what you're saying?
TOR is a responsibility of the state.
Yeah.
The private sector does not own TOR. And so if a private investor comes in and wants to invest in this manner, I think that one of the overarching goal for government is to create that enabling environment.
Yeah, and so use TOR's resources to aid another entity that is largely China-oriented.
You need to investigate that very well.
Investigate what?
What you're saying.
Do you know my sources?
Well,
have you spoken to the key players in that industry?
You need to investigate it very well.
I will direct you to your own Kojopoku. Huh? Go and have an interaction with a member of your party, Kojopoku. Have an interaction with the Dankanamwes. Have an interaction with the Bembwachis and come back to me.
That's not a problem. But you see, we shouldn't let it look as though we are not encouraging private investors to come into the country to invest, because you see, it creates jobs for the local people.
Yeah.
It creates security for the local people.
It puts money into people's pockets.
Well, it puts money in the Ghanaian economy.
It puts money into politicians' pockets.
No, I don't think so. Those are assumptions that you're making.
Assumptions. Huh?
Those are very hasty assumptions.
You know, I feel sometimes you politicians, you think we should commend even media people. We can't read between the lines.
We should commend private investors for coming in. We encourage more private investors to come into Ghana, to invest in Ghana. It's a fertile environment. We're ensuring that we are growing the Ghanaian economy. We're creating a lot of opportunities for people to be able to expand and increase their own lives and livelihood. So really, for me, I think that if you look at what we have done in terms of government's involvement in private sector, is key, because government only creates that enabling environment, and that's what governments must do. And you must commend President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, you must commend government for seeing such level of investment. You may not see the benefits now, but in the years to come, you will see the benefit thereafter. So cabinet met, I'm aware, because there was a communique to that effect. There was a publication on Assassin News, one of your media friends, that cabinet met on Friday, 2nd of February, and went through various conversations. And one of them was a 15% on VAT in terms of electricity. And that has been asked to be held on. And I'm very certain that an official communique would come to that effect. Because you see, the government thinks and cares about the Ghanaian people. TUC gave a very strong warning.
So today is February the 6th. If by February the 13th this has not come, they will demonstrate. When are you hoping to?
I'm certain that the official communique should come out very soon, because you see, TUC is a very strong entity, and even government has increased salaries of employees in this country, which wasn't so in the yesteryears. We've increased it, and we even seek to increase it again by mid of this year. So TUC, labor organizations, GUTA, they are very key to driving agendas of government and ensuring that government is at peace. This year is a year that I don't think that we would want to see a lot of demonstrations. And so government will do what is right. Government would continue to listen.
So you do what is right, not because it is right, but because you want to avoid demonstrations.
No, we need to do what is right.
A typical example.
No, but Benjamin
would be a typical example. But
when you do what is right,
unions,
the teachers unions, you prevent people from going on the streets.
You have taken some of these unions their pensions. You are simply supposed to take it and give it to the pension fund. You take the money and hold on to the money and use it for whatever purposes. You've been doing that for years. The question is, why? So would you wait till you smell that, hey, it's an electoral year, let's avoid demonstrations, before you do the right thing? Why not just do the right thing?
No, I don't think that government wants to avoid demonstrations because it's an election year. Because you see, Benjamin,
but you just
personally,
said that.
No, hold on.
You just said that.
Hold on, Benjamin, hold on. Personally, I always want to come to the table with peace.
Okay.
And so I'm not a person who advocates for demonstration. I'm averse to demonstration. I don't like demonstration.
Mind your words, because someday in the future, if another party is in power, don't come and advocate for demonstrations, because you're a very peaceful man.
I'm a very peaceful gentleman.
Okay.
I like for heads to be around the table, for books to be open, for pens to be in their hands, for us to dialogue. I think that dialoguing is more important, because you see, and you can, even in dialoguing like now we're doing, you are demonstrating your own views. I mean, the conversations we are having is advocating the views that we have, and that's also a demonstrative act. So what I'm averse to is walking on the street wearing a red band or a red beret and trying to let your views be heard. I think that there are various means and mediums that you can use.
Which is why these groupings, you know for how long they've tried with the Labour Commission, the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission.
I comment. Look, I'll tell you something, Benjamin. I once upon a time sat in the negotiations, and I must tell you, I commend the very hard work of Guta, very hard work of TUC, very hard work of CLOSAG, TEWU. The Labour unions are key, and for me, I honor them. I value them. I'm grateful for their continual involvement in our governance structure because we cannot isolate them, which is why government is listening to what the labor organizations are saying. Benjamin, can you imagine one day when these labor organizations decide to go on strike and they cut across from the health sector to the drivers' union?
But it's already affecting our tertiary institutions.
I know.
The senior staff.
I know, which is why government is always making sure that we are listening to the labor organizations and the labor.
Let me quickly run these by you before we conclude. There's also the emissions levy. You've heard of that. Someone was asking this morning, I forgot to answer your question about if you're using gas to power your car and all of that. I want to believe that is exempt because it mentions petrol and diesel, right? But anything from using a motorbike, 75 cedis, upwards to about over 300 cedis. Some people have asked, wait, is this also part of the IMF structure? And what will this be used for? Because is it dealing with climate issues or is it a general bit just to make, meet our financial obligations? Quickly on that, and then we can get into the MMDCs and wrap. Are they scrapping this one too? Tell us, cabinet method, they are scrapping this one too.
Benjamin, you see, earlier on, you had a conversation around the air pollution in Ghana. And I read on your timeline.
You want to use that?
Benjamin, why not?
COVID-19.
No, Benjamin, no.
Ukraine.
Benjamin,
now the AQI. You want to use the AQI?
Benjamin, I'm a well-read, avid gentleman. So allow me. Hey. That's the truth, Benjamin. That's the truth. Visibility is very difficult, And so
we need to tax
Benjamin. Hey. I think that you have just reminded me of my great grand uncle who said,
you go.
But really, Benjamin, climate is very key. In my master's in conflict, peace and security, I did a thesis and a dissertation on climate change and how that can affect security, because that's really very key. We cannot be involved in COP27 in Scotland, be involved in COP28 in United Arab Emirates, and make all those pledges and not want to be seen to be doing something that would reduce our emissions in Ghana in terms of contribution of CO2. Okay, so I think that it's really key for government to begin a conversation.
Right.
Okay, and see to it that conversation comes to light and that conversation comes to fruition. There are not just vehicles that use diesel and petrol. There are industries as well who almost always contribute to pollutions in the atmosphere. I think that the goal is to ensure that as we go green with our continual work from the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources through the Honorable Samuel Abujinapo, with going green and ensuring that our climate is clean and we are leaving the world in a better place as we met it, I think that it's important for every government to begin that conversation.
Okay.
Because it was in 2015 when we started looking into the emissions and the climate issues. And it's been a major conversation. And you are aware that government and President Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo is ensuring that every single involvement of Ghana in the international sector, you need to ensure that whatever promises and pledges that you make, you implement that in country. So we need to just look at it. It's early days. It's something that people have not heard of it before. It means that in a very short time, we should start having a lot more electronic vehicles. I know people who have electronic vehicles who use it in country. We should have a lot more of that in country. We should be able to do away with vehicles that are beyond 10 years, beyond 5 years, so we can have a lot more healthier vehicles, nicer vehicles, user-friendly vehicles, our buses, our taxis, the vehicles that commute people from point A to point B would be in a very dignifying manner.
Okay. Let's do some, just a few reactions. I always feel uncomfortable when I don't read reactions. And then we'll take your final thoughts in about a minute on the MMDCEs. So we have Aaron who says, take it easy on your guest this morning. I don't know, what am I doing to... Paul Grave is my brother. So then this one says, it just came in. Sobele Moses says, has Mr. Boakye Danquah ever sat down and reflected on the reasons? Okay, so let me leave that out. I'm sorry, sometimes it gets a bit personal, so you know I have to. Then there's George Forson. They have affirmed that the black man in his own country can't run things. Politicians have run this country down since 1957. When we had independence. I don't necessarily agree. I don't agree. In fact, not even necessarily. I don't agree with the bit about the black man can't manage his own affairs. Nkrumah touted that I just feel is the kind of leaders we've had, or misleaders as I call them, that have left us here. Lincoln Abraham says, the government is not only their pensions, but individual government workers who took insurance policies have had their premiums withheld by the Comptroller and Accountant General. These premiums are in arrears 3 months, November 2023 to January 2024, and they have not paid individual insurance companies. Okay. And you say their constant disrespect to Ghanaians is legendary, and you're talking of the MPP. George says, Mr. Boakye Danquah is in a different Ghana. Is it true? Are you in a different Ghana?
How can I be? I woke up this morning, and the time I have here is 9 o'clock.
Are you sure you were in Ghana this morning before you came? Or you came from London? Sunny Kware says, Benjamin, you're doing a good job. Dada Lincoln says, I'm proud of you. Okay, questions and all that. Kwabene J says, hey, Mr. Boakye, the world's best economist, pa. Okay, and he goes on with some other thoughts. Now, this weather is beginning to get to me. And then there are many more coming through, but I think I'll just pick those for now. I don't know whether you have any reactions, but to conclude, NALAG has been talking about the, out of the 39 women MMDCEs, I think another 6 have lost their jobs in the recent axing, bringing the number down to 33. If you look at the number of districts and others and the women component, you see that already they are very small and now they've been cut off. But what are your quick reactions? Sacking appointment.
I'm surprised you're using the word sacking. I mean, I think that in the entire governance structure...
but you get appointed and if you don't, you are sacked.
No, you're not sacked. You are relieved of your role. I like to use that word. You are relieved of your role. You are
sacked.
Sacking
is a sack.
You are relieved of your role.
Sacking
or sack. Relieved.
Or sack.
No, you are relieved of your role. Benjamin, it's the truth. You are relieved of your role.
What's the difference?
You are relieved of your role.
Would you continue to play that role?
You won't. So you are relieved.
So you've been sacked?
No, you've been relieved.
Yeah, you did.
No, you have been relieved. So I think that in the governance structure, it's healthy to bring new people in. The president has relieved some MMDCs of their roles and has appointed a few other people who are going to be working in that stead. I think that is welcoming. We should just welcome them. We should encourage them to do a lot more good work in terms of their representation of the president in the municipalities and bring a lot more development, bring a lot more government interventions in their municipalities because it's very key. We have just 10 months to wrap up the year and also wrap up the government of President Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo. And so in this last lap, it's just like playing a football match. There's no extra time that will be given. And I think that we should just allow it to slide. I would commend those who have worked hard over the years and ask that whatever new opportunities that there are given to them, they should continue to avert themselves to such hard work and such hard disciplines. And I'm sure that a lot more changes that needs to be done. We would look forward to see what is in the mind of the president going forward.
Final words, Paul Grave?
Well, final words are that tomorrow at between 4 and 5, the sitting vice president and flag bearer of the New Patriotic Party would be having a conversation with the Ghanaian people at UPSA at the Ohene Kunedu Hall and would be outlining very clearly bold visions and bold solutions for Ghana. Benjamin, I am in no doubt in my mind that Ghana is going to breathe a lot more better in the future. Ghana is going to be a lot more healthier in the future, that under the leadership of Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia as the incoming president from the 7th of January 2025, we're going to have a lot more possibilities in this country, bold decisions. And I think that we should give him the opportunity and the chance. And I would ask that, Benjamin, when you get to the ballot, vote none other person than Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, and ask for multimedia to support Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia in the 2024 general election. Vote for Ghana's continual development. These will be my last words. And I'm sure that next week we'll come back to discuss the policies and the vision that Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia would lay out tomorrow.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Paul Grave.
Thank you
for coming through.
Thank you.
I still love your dress.
Thank you.
It looks very good.
AZ Code did this at Kanda.
Right.
So
that is Paul Grave Boachidankwa. He is government spokesperson on governance and security. But still to come on the show, the question, how do you learn without the assistance of a teacher? That's the story of pupils of the Chigu Primary School in the Northeast Gonja district of the Northern region. They want government to help them to remedy their situation. We'll be discussing this right here on the AM show, after which we'd love to hear from you. More conversations coming up. Do stay.
The Shigu Community School was established by Ibis Ghana, an NGO operating in the northern region, but was later handed over to the community. To help sustain the school and provide education for their children, the community took over the provision of teachers for the school.
4, 5. It's not your regular school where you have a teacher who takes care of students. We are the Shihigu DA Primary School in the Northeast Gonja district of the Savannah region. Here, a P3 student who is smart and can take care of the others is the one teaching from nursery to P1.
The community say they have made efforts to get the government support the school with teachers, but to no avail. Haruna Mohammed is one of the brilliant students in the school, and so he has a responsibility to teach his younger ones.
Haruna Mohammed is the teacher for the pre-primary school. He takes care of these children.
My teacher is not in school today because he is sick, so I am now teaching the KG and P1. We in the upper primary do not have classes because the teacher is sick.
For the upper primary, today is a holiday because their teacher is indisposed.
This is the class 3 and 4. On a normal day, the students would have been studying here, but they are absent. They are outside there playing. Why? Because there's no teacher to help them.
A lecturer and philanthropist at the Tamale Technical University, Mohammed Dawuni, has recruited a teacher to support the school. But as fate will have it, the teacher is currently indisposed.
How did you get connected to this school?
Oh, I'm actually a lecturer in Tamale Technical University, and farming is my hobby. So I made a small farm here as my Saturday activities. But it happens during our vacation. I passed here during school days, and I saw the place was locked down. So I inquired from the elders, and it was that there was no teacher. So initially when I asked, they said Ibis established the place, managed it for a while, and then they asked that they should take over after they handed over. They couldn't fulfill the terms between the teachers, and the teachers had to run away. So I actually inquired if those teachers were still free. They introduced me to 2 of them. In fact, they were still free. So I inquired if Ibi's condition is fully met. They were willing to come back, and they did say yes.
But the public relations officer of the Northeast Gonja District Education Directorate, Idris Ibn, said they have written to the GES in Accra to help absorb the school and support the school with teachers, but they are expecting the response in September.
So the community, they came with the former assembly member, make the request, and then the unit committee members. 3 communities came. The Chegu, Alhaji Rijana is a Fulani community, so closer to Chegu. Then there's also another community along the Libi Road, Nomna. So currently we have these 3 communities schools which has been submitted. I even have the letter in my phone which has been, and currently written approval. And hopefully these community schools will be absorbed and approved from the 2024-2025 academic year, and that will be this year, somewhere between September to October.
Welcome back on the AM show. We are talking about education, and the video you just watched, quite disheartening that students do not have teachers. I don't know how they will be able to manage to learn anything. But we are joined on the phone and via Zoom by Mr. Divine Kpe, who's a senior programs officer at Africa Education Watch. Thank you so much, Mr. Divine Kpe, for joining us. We also have Mr. Peter Anti, who's the executive director of Institute of Education Studies. He's joining us via phone. Mr. Peter Anti, thank you so much for joining us for the conversation this morning. Now, I don't know if you watched the video, but what are your initial thoughts? It's 2024, and after a series of articles and news stories on schools and the trees and how, education is being affected, we still have such a situation here in the Gonja East District. What are your initial thoughts? Let me start with you, Mr. Pitanti.
Thank you very much. And good morning to your viewers, and good morning to my brother. I think that this is to a bigger problem of educational planning in our system. I think that anytime we speak about or we have a discussion on schools under sheet and then schools of shame, as you normally do on your network, I just go back to the data to see whether we have enough information to communicate to us that there is a particular problem at this particular district. And of course, if you look at the data, it clearly shows that there are challenges with school infrastructure in the district in its entirety. So we have not had enough focus in terms of planning with the data that we've been collecting from the various schools. And that is why in 2024, you have schools that do not have teachers at all. It also speaks to the challenge of how we set up schools. Okay, so if I got the documentary right, this school was started by an NGO or a particular institution or company, and when they ended their benevolence to the society, or when they folded up, the school is now in serious problems. So what the general question that normally ask is, what is the role of the district education office in the setup of the school? What has the assembly been doing throughout the establishment of the school? What is the report that the school executive officer for that particular district, what report has he or she been sending to the district office in terms of this particular school? These are questions that we need to answer if we really want to solve some of these problems. Because, of course, you cannot sometimes blame the headquarters, I mean the ministry or the Danish service for some of this, because they take information from the ground. And if the data that I looked at last night is anything to go by, these are information that have been sent to the Ministry of Education, these are information that have been sent to the Ghana Education Service. So they look at the data, they should know that there is a particular challenge of teacher shortage or lack of teachers in this particular district and specifically in this school. And then they could have easily certainly to address the problem. So it's to a broader problem of lack of planning and not paying attention to the data that we have been collecting in terms of our infrastructure and to human resources in general.
Dr. Nancy, you asked a lot of questions that you said we need to find answers to. Who do we pose these questions to? In the video, we saw that they said they'd written to the Ministry of Education and they'll get a response in September. Who do we direct these questions to give us the appropriate answers?
So the first point of call should be the district education office. In the district education office is the school inspectorate officer. The school inspectorate officer should have an idea of what the state of each school under his jurisdiction is. So he should be the first point of call. Then the district education office, the officers in the district education should have an idea of the state of the schools under their supervision. Then if they really indicate or so, but I know because the data that I have looked at indicates that this kind of challenge is prevalent in this particular district. So I will now escalate this particular question to the headquarters of Ghana Education Service and the Ministry of Education, because the data shows that these schools have problems with teachers. If you look at their teacher-teaching ratio, it is nothing to write home about. So it's clear that these particular districts have problems with teacher deployment, teacher distribution. What has been done about it?
Please hold for me. Let me go to Mr. Divine Kpe now, who's a Senior Programs Officer for Africa Education Watch. Mr. Divine Kpe, what are your initial thoughts on the situation?
All right, thank you for having me, and good morning to viewers, as well as my brother, Peter. I'm not surprised that we still have schools that are not having teachers or having adequate teachers. Because clearly we know that one of the challenges with our educational system is the issue of teacher deployment and teacher retention. So GES has been working to come up with a framework on how to effectively deploy teachers and then also how to retain them. Over the years, I don't know the progress of that framework, but I know within the last few 4 to 5 years, there have been attempts to ensure that especially the underserved district, the 75 underserved districts as far as GES categorization is concerned, there have been attempts by GES to improve teacher deployment to such districts where there are acute teacher shortage. But the challenge is even much more beyond just deployment. If we deploy teachers today and they go to such underserved districts, trust me, the maximum time they'll stay there is about 1 to 2 years. So their retention in such communities where there are such deplorable conditions, the mean of transportation is poor, accommodation is poor, basic facilities and amenities are not available. If we deploy them even right now, it will take a very shorter time for them to leave such environments. So the problem is not even about teacher shortage. We have enough teachers. If we want to effectively redeploy our teachers, such environments will get teachers and there will be teachers with the student. But it is broadly about the environment that the teachers are posted to. So beyond this particular documentary or this school, which is not yet a GES school, beyond that, the schools that are GES schools where GES deploy teachers to, the teachers do not stay in such an environment for too long. And so we continue to see this instance of teacher shortage in such environments. They stay 1 or 2 years and then they are leaving. So for me, it is broadly about taking the bull by the horn, identify the root cause, and then tackling from that. And as far as I'm concerned, it is about the working condition, more especially when it comes to accommodation and transportation in those environments. So I heard the assurance from the district GSPRO that who spoke in the documentary that the next academic year, the school will be absorbed. That's a good news. But beyond the absorption, where teacher will be posted to the school, there is a need for us to have a broader conversation that if the teachers are posted to such schools, they can retain them for a very long time. And that brought us to the very point of how we have a medium to a long-term plan to ensure that basic facilities like accommodations and means of transportation are available for teachers to be able to commute to school in those environments, stay in the environment and then commute to school. Otherwise, even if we absorb that particular school today and deploy teachers today, we'll still come back in the next 1 or 2 years to talk about teachers leaving the school or the teachers not being adequate. But again, it also has to be that we need to have a conversation about how organizations set up schools and then they probably leave the school without any proper exit or transitional plan. If they are having to intervene, which of course is a good intervention, because government alone cannot set up all the schools across the country. So there's a need for us to have organizations, faith-based organizations or civil societies, as well as any individual or corporate Ghana providing intervention. But if they want to manage the schools themselves, there's a need for them to have a transition plan, or if they know that it is a project and they are going to exit one day and then the school will have to be managed by somebody else, part of their plan will be to have an exit plan, and how that exit plan includes the transition of the school from them to the government. It's very important. For me, it looks like this particular NGO did not have any plan in place to ensure that there's a smooth transition of the school from them to the government. That's why we have seen this particular school being without teachers over the years, because government has not absorbed them. And there are similar schools across, especially in the northern part of the country, where there are a lot of individuals and their NGO interventions in provision of school. So it's very important that NGOs and any individual, if they feel that they want to manage the school for a time before they transition into government, it's very important that their part of their plan includes the transitional plan, and that comes with a consensual building with the GS, so that when they are exiting, GS is coming in at a go without any vacuum created, as we have seen here, where there's a vacuum of teacher shortage and then teaching and learning not going before 2020 or the next academic year before GES will absorb and begin to post teachers to the environment. So I'm not surprised that we have this situation. There's a clear conversation that we need to have on retaining teachers in our underserved districts beyond deploying them.
Well, like you rightly said, this is not... well, let me just start by saying that this is not a situation only in Chihugu. This is a national problem. I know many teachers. I myself, I went to University of Education whenever, but I do not want to be in the classroom because the environment, the condition is not conducive. And a lot of these teachers end up, emigrating to other countries to go and teach there, where they have fairly or, relatively more better conditions of service. But the issue here is, you mentioned that the GES and the Ministry of Education are making some attempts to curb the situation. If it's a situation of recruitment and retention, then these conversations that you're saying we should have, where do we start from so that we find a one-stop, solution, long-term solution to these problems without having to come back to this every month or so, shedding light on schools that are not doing so well. And these NGOs identified a gap. If there were schools in these communities, they wouldn't have come to set up these schools. So we cannot also fault them for not... Yes, there are proper ways that they could have transitioned these schools into the hands of GES. But the question is, where do we start that conversation from? With who? And how do we ensure that, we curb this nip it in the bud once and for all?
All right. Like I mentioned, this is a medium to a long-term intervention that government would have to deploy, because issue of retaining teachers it's not a one-day job. Over the years, we were having this conversation, and we are in 2024. We are still here about teachers remaining in the classroom. If you look at the collective agreement government has signed with teachers or GES workers in entirety, you have realized that even part of that provision is to ensure that there is something to retain the teachers over there. But generally, we do not have the political commitment to ensure the implementation of that particular framework. So yes, even as I mentioned earlier, that GS is having or developing a framework on how to deploy teachers and then how to retain them. It is not enough if we do not have the commitment to ensure that, one, we improve accommodation situations in the communities over there. So too often classrooms are cited in such communities, and you know that the distance from the nearest community to the school is quite a lot for a teacher to commute. But we do not have, as part of the plans in building the school or siting the school, to attach one or few classroom units to the school, and then teachers are to come there and struggle on themselves to get accommodation. And then after struggling to get accommodation, now they have to also find their way to commute the long distances to the school. Even if you look at GS own provision, the school is supposed to be sited within 3 to 5 kilometers radius of distance from the child's home. And that is fair enough. But when it comes to the teachers mostly where they get accommodation and before they commute to the school, it's much more away than the 3 to 5 kilometers that we even talk about. So it's very important that as part of plans in improving teacher retention in such and that sub-district, this is not a national thing we need to do. This is just a targeted environment where there are teacher shortages. And of course,
this situation is all over the country. It's not just one community that you focus on. No. Like you said, it's all over the country, hidden in communities that you and I will probably never, enter.
Yeah, my point is that when I'm talking about providing accommodation units for teachers, it is not a national thing to be done, but a targeted environment where we know that the northern part of our country are underserved when it comes to educational facilities. Then a framework and target addressing the situation in those areas, not about saying we are having a national framework that provide accommodation units for teachers in the country entirely. No, but targeted such environment where teachers can have accommodation to stay, and then there can be a framework on how their transportation can also be improved. There are best practices that we can learn from other countries like Mozambique, that is also providing some intervention for teachers in underserved districts or rural areas to be able to stay. They provide allowance for them, hardship allowance for them. They provide, they subsidize their accommodation. If the government cannot provide accommodation for them, at least they subsidize accommodation for them so that they can they can stay in the community over there to teach. And then also when it comes to issues of transportation, there's a means of subsidizing their costs so that they can be able to transport themselves to school. So we can learn best practices. It's not that we don't have best practices across the country. There are that as much as our policymakers are globetrotting, attending beautiful international education summits and meetings, it's very important that we borrow. There's no need, we may not have to develop from the scratch our own intervention. There are several examples that we could just adopt and then adapt to suit our situation. So that conversation starts about us knowing that we have a whole lot of situations in our underserved districts when it comes to teacher retention, and the problem is not about deploying them. No, that is not the problem. If deployment would have just transferred teachers there and ends it. No, that is not a problem. How we are going to retain them, that is the problem. And the retention will mean that we need multi-stakeholder approach where several units come on board. The district assembly, per the Education Act, which also has some management responsibility over our basic education. What role can they play when it comes to accommodation provision for teachers and transportation provision for teachers? Then when it comes to government, how can government also come with its subsidies, or government play fidelity to the promises that they made to such teachers in the underserved district? If you put in collective agreement that you give this allowance to teachers in such environments, and yet you are not committed to it, I don't think when the teachers are leaving, we can fault them at all. If government is also to play fidelity to its own commitment that I want to subsidize or provide allowance to pushing you in such environment, I'm sure some teachers will be retained in such an environment. So we need a whole lot of approaches from the approach of the government, and also we come to the district level, who has a responsibility over our basic school, and also the interventions that they can provide. And then our community-based organizations and field-based organizations equally have some level of responsibility. Because I look at it, so over the years, you have known that when it comes to educational infrastructure provision at the basic education level, about 80% of what we have were provided by the faith-based organization, the Christian-based organization and the Muslim-based organization.
And all,
they provided such infrastructure, and they were provided by yesteryear churches and then the mosques who are not richer or who were not richer than our churches today and our mosques today. Sadly, our churches and mosques that are richer than the yesteryear churches, we see little intervention from them. I'm not saying we should shift responsibility of infrastructure provision to citizens or faith-based organizations. And government does nothing, not at all. But I strongly believe that their intervention over the years has helped a lot, and we still believe that their intervention is very important to ensure that we address the significant gap in our educational space. Because for me, where I sit, if we want to rely on government forever, we will continue to sing the same chorus over and over and over. That is why at Edwards, even when we are talking about the infrastructure challenges in our schools, the deficits, what we are doing currently is to continue to mount pressure on government to address this challenge. We are also adopting a way to ensure that we mobilize resources at the local level. So currently we are engaging the district assemblies, some selected district assemblies, where our project will be piloted, to develop a framework to see how we mobilize resources at the grassroots level. Say we identify Adenta municipality. So we have a framework where Adenta municipality is able to identify the corporate entities in their environment, the faith-based organizations in their municipality, the NGOs and individuals that are there, and see how they have education plan, share with them that this is what we have for this year. What are the interventions you can bring on board? What can you provide for us to address? If they are able to mobilize resources at those levels, they can address to some extent the challenges they have. So it's very important that we also address the challenges from the local governance level before we even will be able to come to the national level. Because too often the national government, as far as the education resource is concerned, they are it is overburdened, and I don't see the national government addressing our educational infrastructure challenges in the very shortest possible time if we do not innovative and radical approach at the local government level.
Okay, so when you say, just to clarify, when you say you're mounting pressure, you mean the Africa Education Watch, right?
Yes.
So in this case, this pressure that you're mounting, has it beared any fruit yet? Has it bore any fruit?
Oh, yes, you would have noticed that at our work broadly focuses on ensuring that government improves resource allocation to education, specifically basic education. So we have been talking about government ensuring equity approach when it comes to resource distribution to the education sector. Too often we see resources shifting from the basic education sector going to other subsectors, which of course is very important that we address the issues over there. But for the very fact that the basic level has much of the challenges, if we want to adopt equity approach, it means that basic education will have to have chunk of the money to address their challenges. So our advocacy in the last 3 to 4 years has been to ensure that government improves resource allocation to education service delivery at the basic education level when it comes to infrastructure. And yes, it is yield some results. For instance, when it comes to the capitation grants, previously we were not having in the budget a budget line created for capitation grant. You won't see government's budget and see that this is capitation grant budget line. Not at all. But our engagement with the Ministry of Finance, proud to the finalization of the 2024 budget, we continue to make the case that capitation grant in its entirety needs to be improved. The entire amount needs to be allocated to the schools, and then also there's a need for us to have a line that we can monitor the distribution and then also the disbursements of the fund. So that we're glad when we saw that the 2024 budget carried that component of capitation grant. And for the very first time since the capitation grant was increased to 10 Ghana cedis per student per year, we've seen that the full amount has been allocated, I think about 84 million Ghana cedis. Last year it was 11 million Ghana cedis against a conservative estimate of 80 million. So for this year, we've seen the full allocation in the both capitation grant and the base grant. And our work this year is to ensure that government does not only allocate, but actually disperse the entire amount to the Ministry of Education, and the Ministry of Education also ensuring that the budget execution improves where all the money actually is good. And when it comes to
Mr. Ekpe,
okay.
So what happens to these children as we speak? What happens? What can you do for them? Where do they go from here?
All right. For me, I'm glad that we have heard that the next academic year, which I think will take effect from September, the PRO for the district mentioned that government is going to absorb that school and make available teachers to the school. That is good news.
But that's in September, so they have to wait from now till September to get help. Is that what you're saying?
No, that's not what I mean.
Okay.
But what I'm saying, there's a hope that something is being done in the very long term. At least government is finally going to absorb the school, and then the situation is going to be addressed. However, as the government itself is watching this documentary, we cannot wait till September. There's a need for us to provide a stopgap intervention. And I strongly believe redeploying teachers at this particular time will inconvenience the teachers themselves. So it's not something that's been done. So there's a vacancy. So at the middle of the academic year, we are sending you here, we are sending you here, we are sending you here. I don't see it happening at the broader national level, but at the community level, the community can provide a stopgap intervention. And I'm glad that the man you interviewed was providing that intervention where they want to help some teachers to be assisting these students in the interim. So it's very important that we, as community and then the district assembly, find a means of engaging some people who will provide an interim intervention for these students until we ensure that government in the next academic year adequately facility or put provisions in place to ensure that trained and well-qualified teachers are posted to the area.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ekpe. Mr. Ekpe is the Senior Programs Officer at Africa Education Watch. This is still the AM show. We are not done. We'll take a break, and when we return, there's more. Welcome back on the AM show. It's time now for us to hear from you. But on the conversation around the air quality in Accra, we still have the acting director of the air quality unit of the EPA, Madam Selina Amwa, on phone with us. Madam Selina, thank you so much for joining us. We've had so much talk about this air quality, what it means on the health of citizens. But what I want to find out from you this morning is, why is it so intense?
So much for having me. I think the Environmental Protection Agency has been monitoring the air quality over a period now. And the seasonal variation. So normally when it gets to the Hamatan, you realize that the levels goes up. And just like the Ghana Meteorological Agency said, the Hamatan has intensified. So that is bringing a lot of dust into the country. And what we do monitor is the particulate matter. So once the dust levels goes up, the particulate matter is also going to go up. So that is how come we are registering high levels of the particulate matter from our monitoring locations.
So where do we go from here? Or how long do we wait before this situation goes away?
It depends on how long the Hamatan lasts. You realize that from late December, the levels went up. And then somewhere in January, the beginning of the year, it came down, and then it's going up again. So it depends on the dust that is being blown from the Sahara onto the country.
Okay.
But notwithstanding that, from our monitoring locations, there are areas that the levels are high, but it is not the entire city of Accra. The monitoring locations, that specific locations that you are monitoring from. And then you get the pollution level for each location every day that the monitoring is done. So it depends on the activity around the area that impacts on the air quality. So for a particular location, you realize that the level keeps changing every day. It depends on what is going around. So for this time that we are having the Hamatan dust being blown over the country, the levels will go up. But once that goes down, we'll be registering lower levels than what we are recording now.
Right. So we know that we should be wearing our masks and as much as possible staying indoors. But please add your voice to this. What should we be doing to keep safe during this period?
I think for the Harmattan, like it's been said, it is good for us to wear our pollution mask. And because the dusty winds are coming into the country, some of the things that we do that impact on air quality, we should also avoid them, like the burning of waste. It's been realized that burning of waste also impacts on the air quality. So those of us who have been burning waste, I think we should desist from doing that.
Right. So I know the EPA is mandated to develop and enforce environmental regulations. Are you in talks with governments to produce some sort of policies or regulations that reduce the emissions into the atmosphere, which in no small way contribute to the situation we have now?
That we already have some regulations in place that we are enforcing. The environmental assessment regulations, that requires companies to go through the environmental impact assessment. Requires that, when they do the impact assessment, they identify what the impact from the operation is going to be like, and then they put in mitigation measures. So if a particular operation is going to impact on the air quality, then the facility is required to put in the pollution control systems, which most of them are doing. And we have also developed the standard, the Ghana Standard for Environment and Health Protection for ambient air quality and then point source. And then we also have for the vehicular emissions. And regulations are being developed to facilitate the enforcement of these regulations, of these standards.
Right. Thank you so much, Madam Selina Moa. She's the acting director for the air quality unit at the Environmental Protection Unit. But it's time now for you to join the conversation. The phone lines are on your screen, 030-221-1691. Call us and tell us what your thoughts are on the air quality in Accra, on the 15% VAT that is probably going to be scrapped off. The government says they're in talks with the IMF because it's an agreement with them, so they cannot just up and do and scrap it off on their own. We also know, we all had a conversation with Palgrave, who talked something he said about salary increments, which was interesting because I know last year labor unions were asking for increments of salaries, and I think it's agreed that the government will increase salaries by 23% from January to June, and then another 2% upward adjustment from June going. But I'm not sure yet if that has been done. But let me know what your thoughts are this morning. The numbers are on your screen, 030-2211-691. And let me know what's happening in your area, how you're keeping safe in this Harmattan season with all the health risk that is, posing to us this morning. Right. So I have the data here with me now. So the public sector workers who take home a minimum wage will have their monthly salaries increase by 23%. It was interesting listening to Palgrave talk about it because he said that the government has been increasing. But the last time that something like this was done, salaries were increased, was in July 2023. That's a long time. But the economy has not been kind to citizens. And so I think it's time that this is done. My employers are listening to me right now. We have Ben on the line. Ben, good morning to you. Good morning, Ben. How are you doing this morning?
Good morning. I'm pretty well. How are you too?
I'm okay, thank you. Share your thoughts with me this morning.
Yeah, I wanted to know if I wanted to find out if it is only about this air pollution. It is only about the smoke from the cars or maybe the dust around. I wanted to find out. Because if you are talking about pollution, then the dust is doing more than even the smoke from the cars.
Well, it's not just the dust, Ben. It's the Harmattan season, the dry season too. And then the emissions from cars and burning and everything that, emits harmful substances and particles into the air. The PM stands for fine particle matter. So everything that's in the air that's not supposed to be there, which we can inhale into our lungs, that's what's causing the situation.
Okay.
All right, we have Ahmed on the line. Ahmed, good morning. What are your thoughts this morning? Okay, we've lost Ahmed. So it's the Harmattan season. It's natural causes and our own activities. Some of the guests we spoke to admonished that we stop burning. We try and stay indoors as much as possible. Wear a nose mask. Close your windows when you're home, because there's nothing we can do at this moment to reduce the pollutants in the air, except perhaps it rains and washes the atmosphere of these particles that's caused that. Ibrahim is on the line. Ibrahim, good morning. What are your thoughts?
Good morning.
What are your thoughts, Ibrahim? Share with me.
Please, my problem is concerned about teachers' license issue.
Ibrahim, say again.
I said that my problem is concerned about teacher license issue.
Right, go ahead.
So please, we have some diploma students at home. We have diploma students at home. They write that this is license last year, and they didn't get any chance to research their papers, because if you check the percentage for degree people, they had at least, they didn't, concede, or they didn't. Sorry.
Are you saying that these teachers didn't pass their exams and they have they don't have a second opportunity to take it again? Oh, Ibrahim, you're breaking up. All right, there's another Ibrahim from the Volta region. Good morning, Ibrahim. We've lost him too. But Ibrahim, if I was hearing you clearly, you were saying that some of the teachers who sat for the licensure exams did not pass, and you think they should get a second chance to write the exams again. I don't know if that's what you're saying, but we have to wrap up now. This has been the AM Show. We brought you many conversations on issues that affect you. We talked about education. We talked about the 15% VAT on electricity consumption. And then we looked at the air quality index. My name is Sweetie Abochi, and I did this with Benjamin Akakpo. We are back on your screens tomorrow. But up next, Aisha Ibrahim brings you News Desk. Keep watching Joy News.